Hi guys. Tonight we arrive just as the last light slips away from the horizon, standing outside a medieval castle while the sky deepens into blue and then black. The stone walls rise above you, tall and quiet, already holding the cold of the coming night. Torches flicker along the battlements, their flames trembling in the wind, and you can almost feel how different this place becomes once the sun disappears. Castles were built for power and defense, not comfort, and you are about to discover that night turns every strength into a weakness. You probably will not survive this if you are expecting anything like modern rest. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as you settle in, tell me where you are listening from, and what time it is there right now. Now, dim the lights, and let yourself step forward with me, through the gate, and into a world where sleep is never simple. You pass beneath the heavy archway as the wooden doors close behind you with a dull, final thud. The sound echoes longer than you expect, bouncing off stone that has absorbed centuries of voices, boots, and whispered fears. Inside the courtyard, the air already feels colder than outside. Stone holds on to chill the way water holds on to darkness, and even before true night settles in, you sense it seeping upward from the ground, into your legs, into your bones. As evening deepens, the castle begins to change its rhythm. Daytime activity fades, horses are led away, tools are stacked, fires are fed one last time before attention shifts indoors. This is one of those mainstream historical facts that rarely makes it into movies. Most medieval castles went quiet surprisingly early, often shortly after sunset, because light was expensive and exhausting to maintain. Without electricity, every flame required labor, fuel, and constant watching. Darkness was not dramatic. It was practical. You follow a narrow passage toward the interior, your footsteps tapping unevenly across worn stone. The sound seems louder at night, amplified by the walls. Somewhere above you, a guard calls out, his voice drifting down through an arrow slit. The castle does not sleep all at once. It settles in layers. The smell is the first thing that truly announces night. Smoke from hearth fires lingers, mixing with damp stone, unwashed wool, and something faintly sour that you cannot quite place yet. Medieval writers sometimes complained more about smells than cold, and historians still argue whether people truly became accustomed to it or simply endured it without comment. Either way, the scent of the castle after sunset is thick and inescapable. You pause near the great hall, where the last embers glow in a massive hearth. During the day, this space was loud and alive. At night, it feels cavernous. Shadows stretch upward along the walls, twisting the shapes of banners and wooden beams. Firelight flickers across carved faces in stone, making them seem almost awake. It is easy to understand why medieval people believed darkness invited spirits and unseen forces. Your imagination has too much room to work here. A quirky detail that often surprises modern readers is that many people did not think of night as a time meant purely for rest. Darkness was dangerous, uncertain, and full of meaning. Bells marked the hours. Prayers were said not just for sleep, but for survival until morning. You can feel that tension now, even as you stand still. As you move deeper inside, the temperature drops again. Castle walls are thick, sometimes several meters of solid stone, built to resist attack, not to retain warmth. During the day, they stay cool. At night, they radiate cold inward, like the slow breath of winter itself. Even in summer, people complained of shivering indoors after sunset. In winter, sleep became an act of endurance. You reach a narrow stairway, spiraling upward. Your hand brushes the wall for balance, and the stone feels damp, almost slick. Moisture seeps everywhere in castles, drawn in by rain, fog, and sheer age. Historians still debate how much this constant dampness contributed to illness, but contemporary descriptions often mention aching joints and chills that never quite faded. At the top of the stairs, a corridor stretches ahead, dimly lit by a few candles set into wall niches. Their flames sputter slightly, reacting to every movement of air. You notice how careful people are around them. Fire is life here, but also death. One fallen candle could destroy an entire wing. This fear shapes how night unfolds. No one relaxes fully. As the castle prepares for sleep, doors are closed and barred. Curtains are drawn, not for privacy as you know it, but to trap what little warmth exists. The sounds change. Voices soften. Footsteps slow. Somewhere below, you hear the scrape of furniture being dragged closer to a hearth. A final attempt to hold on to heat. You realize something quietly unsettling. Night inside a castle does not bring relief from the world. It intensifies it. Every sound feels closer. Every shadow feels intentional. The walls that protected you during the day now press inward, amplifying cold, smell, and fear. You find yourself thinking about how different this is from modern bedtime. No soft lighting. No sense of safety sealed behind glass and insulation. Sleep here begins with acceptance. Acceptance that you will be cold, that you will hear things you cannot explain. That comfort is relative. As you stand there, breathing in smoke and stone, the castle fully surrendered to night, you begin to understand what it really meant to sleep in a medieval fortress, not as a romantic image, but as a lived experience, shaped by darkness, uncertainty, and endurance. And with that realization settling gently in your mind, you take another step forward, ready to find where. Exactly. You will lie down and face the long night ahead. You move deeper into the castle, guided now less by sight and more by habit and memory. At night, people did not wander aimlessly here. Every turn had purpose. Every destination already known by heart. You follow the flow of others who are also preparing to sleep. Their movements slow, practiced, and quiet. No one asks where you are going. In a castle, your sleeping place is assumed by your role. The first thing you learn is that there is no single bedroom waiting for you. Sleeping in a medieval castle is not a private affair. It is a reflection of hierarchy made physical. If you are noble, your night unfolds behind thicker doors. If you are a servant, your rest is scattered wherever space allows. This is one of those mainstream historical facts that shapes everything else. Where you sleep tells everyone exactly who you are. You pass alcoves along the corridor, shallow recesses where straw pallets have already been laid. Some are tucked near stairwells, others near storage rooms. These are not temporary solutions. For many people, this is their regular sleeping spot, close to work, close to movement, close to cold. Historians still argue whether servants preferred these locations for warmth from nearby activity or simply accepted them because there was no alternative. You pause near one pallet. It is little more than a layer of straw wrapped in coarse cloth. The straw smells faintly sweet and faintly rotten at the same time. It pricks through the fabric when you kneel to touch it. This is not meant to cradle your body. It is meant to lift you slightly off the stone floor, just enough to survive the night. As you move on, the castle seems to narrow. Corridors become smaller, ceilings lower. You feel as though the building is gently guiding you into its own logic. Sleeping spaces are tucked into leftover areas, corners, upper galleries, rooms that serve one purpose by day and another by night. You reach the great hall again, now almost entirely dark. During feasts and gatherings, this space was the heart of the castle. At night, it transforms. Along the walls, long benches are already lined with bodies wrapped in cloaks. Some people sleep sitting up, backs pressed to timber, knees pulled close for warmth. Others lie beneath tables, using trestles as windbreaks. It looks uncomfortable, And it is. But there is a strange order to it. A quirky detail often overlooked is that sleeping in communal spaces was sometimes considered safer. Fire, theft, or sudden orders could reach you quickly here. Being alone behind a door might feel private, but it also meant isolation. Medieval life favored awareness over comfort. You notice how people position themselves carefully. Feet toward the hearth, backs shielded from drafts, cloaks layered in specific ways. There is an unspoken knowledge passed down over generations. You learn by watching. This is how people survive night after night. As you stand there, deciding where you belong, the question of rank presses gently but firmly. Are you meant to sleep here? Surrounded by quiet breathing and shifting bodies? Or elsewhere, in castles? Even rest is regulated. Guards often sleep near doors or stairways, ready to wake at the slightest disturbance. Servants sleep close to kitchens or storerooms, where they can be summoned instantly. Children sleep wherever their caretakers can keep them warm and close. You are led down another passage, narrower still, and finally into a small chamber. It is not luxurious, but it is enclosed. A wooden door creaks softly as it closes behind you. Inside, a low bed frame stands against the wall. This, you realize, is already a privilege. Raised beds were not universal. Being lifted even a short distance off the floor reduced dampness and cold. The mattress is stuffed with straw and old wool. It dips unevenly when you press down. Above it, a rough blanket has been laid out, heavy and scratchy. You imagine how it will feel against bare skin and decide that sleeping fully clothed might be the wiser choice. Many people did exactly that, layering garments at night rather than undressing as you would today. The room smells different from the hall. Less smoke, more fabric, more human presence lingering in the walls. There is a small shuttered window, tightly closed. Opening it would invite cold and moisture. Keeping it shut means stale air. This choice, too, was familiar to medieval sleepers. Freshness or warmth, rarely both. You sit on the edge of the bed, listening. The castle hums softly at night. Distant footsteps, a muffled cough, the scrape of wood somewhere above you. You realize that silence, true silence, does not exist here. The building is alive, settling and shifting with temperature and time. Historians still debate whether people slept better or worse under these conditions. Some argue that exhaustion made sleep easy. Others point to constant interruption. Bells rang. Guards shouted the hours. Animals moved. Children cried. Rest came in fragments. You notice a small chest at the foot of the bed. Inside are personal items. Folded clothing. Perhaps a knife or a token. Sleeping spaces doubled as storage. Everything important stayed close. Theft was not always malicious. Sometimes it was survival. As you prepare to lie down, you become aware of how exposed you still are. The door is thin. The walls are cold. The lock, if there is one, feels symbolic rather than secure. Yet people slept here anyway. Night after night, year after year. You stretch out carefully, testing the mattress, adjusting the blanket. Your body already begins to tense against the cold rising from stone. Finding your sleeping spot is not about comfort. It is about compromise. Between warmth and safety, between privacy and awareness, between rest and readiness. As your breathing slows, you understand that this place, imperfect as it is, represents stability. A known corner of the castle, a predictable night. In a world filled with uncertainty, that alone has value. And as the darkness deepens, you allow yourself to settle, knowing that sleep here is less about drifting away and more about holding on until morning comes. You shift your weight and feel the sleeping surface respond beneath you, uneven and faintly alive. This is not a mattress in the modern sense. It is a bundle of compromises. Layered straw, old wool, and whatever soft material could be spared. As you lie down, the bed sighs quietly, releasing trapped air and the dry, dusty scent of harvested fields. This is what most people meant when they spoke of a bed in a medieval castle. Beds existed, yes, but not in the uniform way you might expect. Surviving household inventories show that raised bed frames were prized possessions, listed carefully alongside chests and cooking tools. Being elevated even a handspan above the stone mattered. Cold and damp collected near the floor, and anything that separated your body from that chill was worth defending. For many people, though, elevation was a luxury. Benches, pallets, and bare floors filled the gap. You imagine the range of sleeping arrangements unfolding around you. Some lie on simple straw sacks dragged close to the hearth. Others curl up on wooden benches, cloaks wrapped tightly around their shoulders. A few sleep directly on rushes spread across the floor, their bodies pressed low, conserving warmth through sheer proximity to the ground. The idea of a personal bed assigned to each person would have felt excessive, even strange. The straw beneath you shifts again as you settle. Individual stalks poke through the fabric, sharp in places, flattening in others. People replaced straw regularly when they could, but not as often as comfort demanded. There was an understanding that sleep involved a certain amount of endurance. Softness was appreciated, but not expected. Something people today often overlook is how closely bedding followed agricultural rhythms. Straw came from harvests, wool from sheep sheared in specific seasons. When supplies ran thin, beds grew thinner too. Comfort rose and fell with the land. This was not philosophy. It was daily reality. You reach for the blanket, heavy and rough, and pull it closer. It smells faintly of smoke and old fabric. Blankets were valuable, sometimes shared, sometimes passed down through families. In castles, woven coverings served many purposes. By day, they hung on walls or benches. By night, they became insulation. The same cloth might protect you from drafts, serve as a seat covering at supper, and then wrap you in sleep. As you lie there, fully clothed, you understand why undressing was uncommon. Layers mattered. Linen shirts, woolen tunics, cloaks folded just right. Each piece trapped air, and trapped air meant warmth. Nightwear as a separate category did not truly exist. Sleep happened within the same garments that carried you through the day. Your body begins to register the cold seeping upward. Stone is patient. It draws heat slowly, steadily, without urgency. You feel it along your back, your legs, the places where the straw is thinnest. This sensation explains why so many people slept curled rather than stretched out. Compact shapes lost less warmth. Children were often tucked between adults, not only for comfort but for survival. There is a small detail from castle life that tends to surprise modern readers. Beds were rarely silent. Straw crackled, wood creaked, fabric rasped with every movement. Turning over meant announcing yourself. In a shared space, this mattered. People learned to move carefully, slowly, so as not to disturb others or draw unwanted attention. The sounds around you form a low, constant backdrop. Breathing, a soft cough, someone shifting nearby, somewhere farther off. A door closes, followed by the dull thud of a wooden bar sliding into place. The castle settles, but it never fully rests. You notice itching begin almost immediately, not sharp, but persistent. Fleas, lice, and other unwelcome companions were common in bedding. No matter how often straw was changed, cleanliness existed, but it followed different rules. Washing fabric was labor-intensive, and water was cold. Complete freedom from parasites was rare. People scratched, sighed, and tried to ignore it. Writings from the period suggest that many accepted this as part of life, rather than a constant misery. Others complained openly. The historical record is divided on how severe infestations truly were, but there is little doubt that, uninterrupted, comfortable sleep was not guaranteed. You shift again, adjusting the blanket, pulling it higher toward your chin. The fabric is heavy enough to press down slightly, offering a strange sense of security. Weight mattered. Heavier coverings blocked drafts and made you feel anchored in place. Light blankets fluttered too easily, letting cold air slip through. Nearby, someone mutters in their sleep. Words drift without meaning. Dreams come easily here. Perhaps because exhaustion is deep, or perhaps because the boundary between waking and sleeping feels thinner in the dark. Night blurs things. Shadows stretch. Thoughts wander. You think about how different this is from the beds of the wealthiest castle residents. Nobles slept on frames with rope lattices, topped with multiple layers of bedding. Even then, comfort was relative. Feather mattresses existed, but they were expensive and not always pleasant. Feathers clumped. They shifted. They absorbed moisture. Some people preferred straw because it breathed better. The idea that medieval people all slept on crude piles is misleading. What varied most was not the presence of a bed, but the quality of separation from the ground. Wood, rope, straw, wool. Each layer marked status, but none erased cold entirely. As the night deepens, you become aware of another sensation. Smell intensifies when the body stills. The scent of straw, the lingering smoke woven into cloth, the faint presence of human bodies that have rested here before you. Castles were reused spaces. Bedding absorbed history as much as walls did. There is no pillow as you know it. At best, a rolled cloak or folded garment supports your head. Neck positions matter. People learned what angles worked, what left them stiff in the morning. Sleep was practical, not indulgent. Some accounts hint that people slept lighter, waking more often. Others suggest exhaustion overpowered discomfort. The truth likely varied. There is no single medieval sleep experience, only patterns shaped by place, season, and circumstance. You close your eyes and listen again. The crackle of embers, the distant call of a guard marking the hour. Time is measured differently here. Without clocks in every room, sleep unfolds in segments. Drift, wake, drift again. This pattern will become clearer as the night continues. For now, you focus on stillness, on finding the least cold spot, on breathing slowly. The bed beneath you is not designed to make you forget the world. It reminds you constantly where you are, inside stone walls, wrapped in borrowed warmth, sharing space with others doing the same. And as your body finally begins to loosen, you realize that medieval sleep was not about comfort at all. It was about adaptation, learning how to rest just enough, how to endure the dark hours, how to rise again when morning came. And with that understanding settling quietly into your thoughts, you allow yourself to sink deeper into the imperfect, living surface beneath you, preparing for the long night ahead. The cold makes itself known long before sleep fully claims you. It does not arrive suddenly or dramatically. Instead, it creeps in with patience, threading its way through every gap the castle cannot seal. You feel it first in your feet, then along your spine, then settling behind your shoulders like an unwelcome hand that refuses to lift. Stone does not forget the winter, even when the season softens outside. It stores chill carefully, releasing it only when the day gives way to night. Castles were designed to resist attack, not weather. Thick walls stopped arrows and fire, but they also trapped cold like a reservoir. Once the sun disappeared, that stored chill began to radiate inward. People living here understood this instinctively. Evening was not simply the end of the day. It was the moment when warmth began to drain away. You shift slightly, hoping to find a warmer pocket in the bedding. The straw responds with a faint rustle, but the cold remains steady. Fires burned earlier. Yes, but they were allowed to fade. Keeping a hearth blazing all night was risky and wasteful. Wood had to be hauled, chopped, dried. Someone had to watch the flames constantly. Most castles chose darkness and cold over the danger of uncontrolled fire. Records from estate accounts show how carefully fuel was rationed. Especially in winter, wood was counted. Charcoal was locked away. What warmth existed at night came from what had already been burned, and from bodies gathered close together. This was not negligence. It was necessity. You realize now why tapestries mattered so much. By day, they displayed wealth and lineage. By night, they served as insulation. Heavy fabric hung along walls slowed the movement of cold air, trapping a thin layer of warmth between cloth and stone. In rooms without them, the chill felt sharper, more immediate. Touching bare walls after sunset could numb fingers within moments. You pull your cloak tighter around you, drawing the edges inward. This movement mirrors countless others who did the same centuries ago. Sleep here involved constant adjustment, tucking, retucking, folding fabric just so. Every small movement was an attempt to outwit the cold, at least temporarily. One detail that becomes clear when reading personal letters from the period is how often people complained about night cold, even in seasons we would consider mild. Spring nights bit sharply. Autumn brought damp chill. Winter was something else entirely. Breath sometimes showed indoors. Water left near walls developed a thin skin of ice. In extreme cases, ink froze in its well. Still, there is disagreement about how cold castle interiors truly became. Some reconstructions suggest temperatures hovered just above freezing, while others argue that the presence of people and animals raised indoor warmth more than we assume. The truth likely varied from room to room, castle to castle, night to night. What is certain is that warmth was never taken for granted. You become aware of subtle movements around you. Someone shifts closer to the hearth, even though it now offers little more than psychological comfort. Another curls tighter into their cloak. Children are drawn closer to adults. Bodies cluster not out of affection, but efficiency. Shared warmth is reliable warmth. The cold also shapes posture. You tuck your knees slightly, instinctively reducing exposed surface. Many medieval illustrations show sleepers curled rather than stretched, a reflection not of artistic choice, but of lived habit. Compact shapes conserve heat. People learn this early. Air inside the castle feels heavy and still, yet drafts find their way in. Gaps around doors, cracks in shutters, slits meant for arrows that now channel night air inward. These currents slide across your skin, searching for exposed places. Neck, ankles, face. You turn your head slightly, pressing your cheek into folded fabric to block the flow. Even nobles, sleeping in more enclosed chambers, could not fully escape this. Private rooms helped, but stone still dominated. Windows were small, yet poorly sealed. Wooden shutters rattled faintly as the night wind pushed against them. No glass meant no true barrier. You remember how earlier, warmth seemed almost manageable while you were moving. Now, stillness magnifies everything. Cold feels louder when you stop. It presses against thought, sharpening awareness. Sleep comes only after the body accepts it will not get warmer. This acceptance shapes how rest unfolds. You do not sink quickly into deep sleep. Instead, you drift in layers. Light sleep, half waking, back again. Each time you surface, you adjust fabric, tuck an edge, pull a sleeve lower. Over time, movements slow. Eventually, the body finds equilibrium, however imperfect. There is another element to cold that is easy to miss. Dampness. Moisture clings to stone, to air, to fabric. Even when temperatures do not drop drastically, damp cold penetrates deeper than dry chill. It stiffens joints. It lingers. Medieval people were keenly aware of this. often preferring drafty upper spaces over lower rooms where moisture pooled. This awareness influenced sleeping locations, raised beds, upper floors, sleeping near heat sources even after they faded. Choices were guided by experience rather than theory. People knew what hurt in the morning and tried to avoid it. As the night deepens, the cold seems to steady rather than worsen. This is the plateau, the point where the castle, the fireless hearths, and the bodies within reach a shared temperature. It is not comfortable, but it is predictable. Predictability matters. It allows the mind to relax just enough. You notice how breathing changes. Slower, deeper. Inhaling cold air through the nose feels sharp at first, but then fades into background sensation. Exhaling warms the space immediately around your face. A small private climate created by breath alone. Some people slept with heads fully covered, fabric drawn over nose and mouth, leaving only narrow openings for air. Others feared doing so, worried about breathing stale air or suffocating. Advice differed. Habit ruled. Time stretches. Without clocks nearby, hours lose their shape. Bells might mark certain moments, but between them, night feels endless. Cold blurs edges. Thoughts wander and then dissolve. You begin to understand that sleeping in a medieval castle was less about escaping the day and more about enduring the night. Cold was not an enemy to be defeated, but a condition to be managed. You negotiated with it through layers, posture, proximity, and patience. Eventually, your muscles loosen, the shivering stops. Not because you are warmer, but because your body has adjusted its expectations. This is not failure. It is survival. Wrapped in cloth, pressed against straw, surrounded by the quiet persistence of stone, you drift into a lighter sleep. Not deep, not long, but enough. Enough to carry you forward until the next sound, the next shift. The next moment of awareness pulls you briefly back. And in that fragile balance between cold and rest, you find the true rhythm of castle nights. Not comfort, but continuity. Not warmth, but endurance. And slowly, almost without noticing, you let the cold fade into the background as sleep, thin but real, finally settles in. Sleep does not arrive all at once. Instead, it poses, hesitates, and then pulls back as light flickers nearby. Even with your eyes closed, you sense it. Firelight has a presence. It moves. It breathes. Somewhere not far from where you lie. Embers still glow, and a few stubborn flames continue their quiet work. They cast soft movement across stone and fabric, reminding you that night here is never fully dark. Fire is the center of castle life after sunset, not just for warmth, but for orientation. A hearth defines space. It tells you where people will gather, where they will sleep, and where they will watch. Even as flames die down, their influence lingers. Shadows stretch and shrink with every shifting ember, making walls feel closer, then farther away. You open your eyes briefly and watch the ceiling. The light dances there, slow and uneven. Wooden beams seem to bend as shadows crawl along them. Carved details flicker in and out of existence. It is easy to imagine faces in these patterns. Many people did. Night amplified imagination, especially when tired minds met restless light. Candles supplement the hearth, but they are used sparingly. Wax is valuable. Tallow smells and smokes. Each candle must justify its existence. In many parts of the castle, they have already been snuffed out, leaving only the hearth to carry the burden of light. Guards and servants on duty rely on small flames to guide them through corridors, shielding the wick with their hands as they walk. You notice how fire changes sound. Crackling embers provide a rhythm, subtle but constant. It masks smaller noises while emphasizing others. A cough near the hearth feels louder. Footsteps farther away feel more distant. This shifting acoustic landscape shapes how people relax. Silence feels unnatural. Complete darkness feels dangerous. One detail revealed through household rules and monastic guidelines is how carefully fire was managed at night. Certain people were assigned to check hearths before sleep, spreading embers, banking coals, reducing risk. A forgotten flame could mean disaster. Castles burned more often than popular imagination suggests, usually not from attack, but from carelessness. You feel safer knowing the fire is low. Bright flames might comfort you briefly, but they also invite fear. Smoke, sparks, heat near fabric. Many preferred a dim glow to an active blaze. Sleep came easier when danger felt contained. As the light softens, you notice the smell change. Earlier, smoke was sharp and present. Now it fades into the background, leaving behind a faint warmth in the air and in the stone nearest the hearth. That warmth does not reach you fully, but its presence is reassuring. It tells you that someone thought ahead, that the fire was fed just enough. Firelight also governs behavior. Conversations drop to whispers. Faces turn inward. People avoid sudden movements. Even laughter is quieter. Restrained. Light shapes mood. Bright daylight invites activity. Low firelight invites reflection, caution, and eventually rest. You turn slightly and watch silhouettes near the hearth. Someone adjusts a blanket. Another pokes at embers with a stick, careful not to wake others. These movements are slow and deliberate, learned through repetition. Night work is quiet work. In some castles, lamps filled with oil provided steadier light than candles. They burned longer and resisted drafts. Their glow was softer, more even. But oil was expensive and sometimes reserved for important areas. Where oil lamps existed, they created pockets of calm, steady illumination that felt almost luxurious. There is a belief reflected in sermons and moral writings from the period that nightlight should be modest. Excessive illumination was associated with vanity or temptation. Darkness encouraged humility. Soft light encouraged prayer. Even in secular spaces, this thinking shaped habits. You begin to understand why many medieval people did not aim to banish darkness entirely. Light was not a tool for conquering night, but for navigating it. Too much disrupted sleep. Too little invited fear. Balance mattered. Shadows continue their slow movement as the fire settles. They stretch along walls and retreat again. Shapes form and dissolve. A tapestry appears to ripple. A pillar seems to lean. Your mind plays gently with these illusions. Not alarmed, just aware. There is a quiet moment when the last active flame shrinks into glowing embers. This is the turning point. The castle shifts again. Light no longer dominates. Darkness fills the spaces between. The hearth becomes less a source of illumination and more a point of warmth memory. You feel your eyelids grow heavier now, without moving light to engage your attention. Your thoughts drift inward. The cold remains. The smells linger. The sounds continue. But light no longer demands response. Some people slept facing the hearth deliberately, eyes half open, comforted by the faint glow. Others turned away, preferring darkness. Habits varied. What mattered was familiarity. Knowing how your body responded. A faint call echoes through the castle as a guard marks the hour. His voice is steady, practiced. Firelight reflects briefly off metal as he passes a torch along the wall. Then the sound fades, and the torch moves on, leaving behind only memory. The castle settles deeper into night. Firelight withdraws to its quiet core. Candles are gone. Lamps are dimmed. The world narrows to breath, fabric, and thought. You close your eyes again, this time without resistance. Darkness feels thicker now, but also calmer. The shifting shadows have slowed. The light no longer pulls you back. In this softened space, sleep finds you more easily, not because conditions have improved, but because your senses have adjusted. Fire has done its work, not by warming you fully, but by guiding you gently toward rest. And as the last glow fades into steady embers, you drift into the quieter hours of the night, wrapped in shadow, guided by memory of light, ready for whatever sounds or stirrings may come next. As the firelight fades into embers, another layer of protection quietly takes over. Fabric, wood, anything that can slow the movement of air becomes suddenly important. You notice it most when a draft slips through a corridor and brushes your face. Sharp and unwelcome. Even a narrow current of cold air can undo all the careful tucking and layering you have done. Doors matter here in ways that are easy to forget. Many are thick, heavy planks reinforced with iron, designed to stop force rather than weather. They close with authority, but rarely with precision. Gaps remain at the edges. Cold air finds them easily. At night, people stuffed these spaces with rolled cloth, spare garments, or bundles of straw. It was not elegant, but it worked well enough. You hear the soft scrape of wood as someone nearby adjusts a door, pushing it tighter into its frame. The sound is familiar, repeated countless times each evening. Small rituals like this define the transition into night. Close the door, block the draft, pull the curtain. Only then could rest begin. Hanging fabric plays a role too. Tapestries, cloaks, even spare blankets are draped wherever air insists on moving. Along walls, behind beds, across doorways. These layers do not create warmth, but they slow its escape. The effect is subtle, but noticeable. Standing near a tapestry feels different than standing against bare stone. The air is calmer, less biting. One well-attested detail from castle inventories is how frequently textiles appear among the most valuable items. Not jewelry, not weapons. Fabric. Wool and woven hangings were expensive, labor-intensive, and deeply practical. At night, their value became obvious. A single heavy tapestry could make the difference between tolerable cold and misery. You pull part of your cloak closer to your neck as another draft sneaks past. The movement is instinctive now. Everyone here learns quickly how air behaves inside stone walls. Cold sinks. Warmth rises. Corridors funnel wind like narrow valleys. Sleeping spaces are chosen accordingly. Windows are small, but they are also weak points, without glass in many cases. Shutters are the only barrier. Wooden panels close tightly, but wood shrinks and swells with weather. Tiny gaps remain. Cold slips through. Some people hang fabric over windows as well, creating a second barrier that catches moving air. The castle itself breathes at night. As temperatures drop, materials contract. Wood creaks. Stone pops faintly. These sounds blend with the whisper of moving air, creating a constant low presence. You hear it even as you lie still. It is not threatening, just persistent. People who slept here understood this breathing well. They knew which corners were worst, which walls leaked cold, which spots stayed calmer. Knowledge passed quietly, shared without words. A servant would guide a newcomer with a gesture, a nod, a shift of bedding away from a draft. There is also the matter of curtains, not the decorative kind you imagine, but thick cloth hung around beds or across parts of rooms. Bed hangings created enclosed pockets of air. Inside them, warmth lingered slightly longer. Nobles favoured these structures, but even simpler versions existed for others when fabric allowed. Inside such an enclosure, sounds softened, light dimmed further, privacy increased a little, not enough to forget where you were, but enough to make rest easier. You understand now why enclosed beds became symbols of comfort and status. They were not about luxury. They were about survival. You listen as someone nearby adjusts a hanging cloth, pulling it tighter. The fabric brushes against wood with a soft rasp. The sound fades, replaced by slower breathing. Small victories like this matter. Blocking a draft means one less interruption during the night. The air smells different near fabric too. Less stone, more wool, more human presence. This scent is comforting in its own way, a reminder that others are close. That warmth is shared even when space is not. There is a habit mentioned in several household accounts that feels oddly modern. People sometimes slept with their heads turned toward walls rather than open space. Not for security, but to avoid moving air. Facing a wall reduced exposure. The stone was cold. Yes, but stillness mattered more than temperature. You turned slightly, testing this yourself. The draft that brushed your cheek before now misses you. The difference is immediate. You relax a fraction more, muscles loosening as the air settles. Even floors were treated thoughtfully. Rushes spread across stone added a thin, insulating layer. Straw mats softened footfalls and reduced cold, radiating upward. These coverings were replaced regularly, especially in busy spaces. But at night, they served a crucial role. The castle at rest is a patchwork of such small adjustments. No single solution solves the cold. Instead, dozens of minor defenses work together. Fabric, position, stillness, awareness. There remains uncertainty about how effective these measures truly were. Some reconstructions suggest they made a noticeable difference. Others argue their impact was limited. What is clear is that people believed in them, relied on them, and refined them over time. Belief itself can shape comfort. You become aware of how rarely people fully undressed for sleep. Removing layers meant exposing skin to drafts. Even the act of shifting fabric carried risk. It was safer to remain wrapped, cocooned in familiar cloth. Night deepens. The air steadies. Drafts slow as outside temperatures settle. Inside, the castle finds its balance again. You sense this change without seeing it. The sharpness of cold dulls slightly. The constant movement becomes more predictable. You breathe slowly, matching the rhythm of the space around you. Fabric hangs still. Doors remain closed. The castle breathes more quietly now. In this calmer air, your thoughts drift. The practical world recedes. What remains is sensation. The weight of cloth, the muted sounds of others resting, the faint memory of fire. You understand now that sleeping in a medieval castle required constant negotiation with the environment. Walls alone were not enough. Comfort came from adaptation, from using every available material to shape space into something tolerable. And as your body settles into this carefully arranged pocket of still air, you feel a small sense of success. Not warmth. Exactly. But stability. Enough to rest. Enough to let sleep return. Wrapped in layered fabric. Shielded from the worst drafts. You allow your breathing to slow further. The castle holds its breath with you. For now, the air is calm. For now, rest is possible. You notice it most once everything else quiets down. When movement stops and firelight fades, scent rises to the surface of awareness. Smell does not disappear at night inside a castle. It gathers. It settles. It becomes part of the air you breathe with every slow inhale. The first layer is smoke, even hours after the hearth has been allowed to dim. The scent lingers in fabric, hair, and skin. It is not sharp now, but deep and familiar. Wood smoke seeps into everything here, woven permanently into tapestries and blankets. To people living in castles, this smell signaled safety and continuity. Fire meant warmth, cooking, protection. The scent stayed long after the flame was gone. Beneath the smoke, you detect wool, cloaks, blankets, wall hangings. Wool carries a smell of its own, faintly oily, slightly sweet, unmistakably animal. It grows stronger when warmed by bodies pressed close together. This scent is comforting to some, irritating to others. Over time, it becomes invisible, just another part of the night. Then there is stone. Cold stone has a smell, especially when damp. It is mineral and faintly metallic, like rain on old walls. Moisture trapped in thick masonry releases this scent slowly as temperatures drop. It mixes with smoke and fabric, creating an atmosphere that feels heavy but stable. You become aware of human presence next. Bodies that worked all day, sweat dried into linen, breath shared in enclosed spaces. In castles, bathing existed, but not daily as you might expect. Washing followed rhythms of labor and season. Night magnifies these realities. Close quarters mean shared air. People were not ignorant of this. Herbs were often scattered on floors or tucked into bedding. Lavender, rosemary, mint, not everywhere, and not always fresh, but enough to soften what could not be eliminated. A small bundle near the head could make breathing easier. It could also carry symbolic meaning, believed to ward off illness or bad dreams. One detail that often surprises modern readers is how animals contributed to nighttime scent. Dogs slept indoors, often close to people. Cats wandered freely. In some castles, chickens or other small livestock were brought inside for safety. Their presence added warmth, but also odor. This was a trade most people accepted without complaint. You catch a faint animal smell now, mixed with straw and wool. It is not unpleasant. Just present. Life here is layered. Human and animal sharing space because survival demands it. Waste management affects the air too. Chamber pots sit nearby, covered but not sealed. Their contents add a sour note. Especially in rooms without good airflow, people emptied them regularly. But nights stretched hours between trips. This smell was understood, tolerated, and rarely discussed directly. Surviving writings suggest people noticed bad smells more when they were new. Familiar ones faded into background. The human nose adapts quickly. What remains noticeable are changes. A fire burned with a different wood. A new person entered the room. Rain increased dampness in the walls. You breathe slowly, letting the air move through you without judgment. At first, your body resists. Then, gradually, it accepts. This is the environment. It will not change before morning. Some believed that night air itself was dangerous. Medical theories of the time warned about miasma, invisible vapors thought to cause illness. Sleeping near stagnant air was considered risky. This belief influenced habits. People preferred raised beds. Curtains were drawn carefully. Windows were sometimes cracked just enough to allow slow movement without inviting cold. There is no full agreement today on how accurate these fears were, but they shaped behavior deeply. Concern for air quality existed long before modern science explained it. You notice that people nearby breathe shallowly at first, then deeper as sleep settles. Breath warms the air immediately around the face. Some pull fabric over their mouths to trap this warmth. Others avoid doing so, fearing stale air. Advice varied by region and tradition. The smell of herbs becomes more noticeable as your senses narrow. Someone nearby has tucked a small bundle into their bedding. The scent is dry, calming. It masks sharper notes without erasing them. Over time, the air seems to thicken, not because it changes, but because you stop resisting it. This acceptance allows rest to deepen. Smell becomes background rather than focus. You realize that castles were never meant to smell clean in a modern sense. They smelled lived in, active, used. At night, without movement to disperse scents. This truth becomes unavoidable. And yet, there is comfort here too. Familiarity breeds calm. The scent of smoke means fire burned safely earlier. The scent of wool means warmth remains nearby. The presence of others means you are not alone. You turn your head slightly, finding a position where the air feels easier. This small adjustment matters. It is another quiet skill learned through repetition. Somewhere in the distance, a door opens briefly, letting in a fresh draft. Cold air rushes through, carrying outside smells, damp earth, Nightgrass. Maybe snow if the season allows. The door closes, and the interior air settles again, blending old and new. That brief change reminds you how enclosed this space truly is. Inside scent is controlled. Outside scent is wild. People here choose enclosure despite its drawbacks. Protection matters more than freshness. As the hours pass, smell fades further into the background. Your mind no longer catalogues it. Instead, it becomes part of the fabric of sleep, like the weight of blankets or the hum of distant sound. You drift more deeply now, carried not by comfort, but by familiarity. The air holds you as much as the bed does. Sleeping in a medieval castle means accepting the presence of others in every breath. It means sharing not just space, but atmosphere. Smell tells the story of that shared life, honest and unfiltered. And as your breathing slows and your thoughts loosen, the air around you becomes simply air again, no longer smoke or wool or stone, but something steady and constant, carrying you gently toward the next stretch of night. Sleep never belongs to you alone here. Even when your eyes are closed and your body finally settles, you remain aware of others nearby. Their presence presses gently into your rest, shaping it in ways both subtle and constant. In a medieval castle, night erases the illusion of personal space. Darkness gathers everyone closer, whether they wish it or not. You sense bodies around you before you hear them. The warmth they give off, the slight movement of air when someone turns, the rhythm of breathing that never quite synchronizes. These are the quiet signals that remind you that you are sharing the night. Servants, guards, children, messengers, all folded into the same stone shell, separated more by habit than by walls. Castles were crowded places by modern standards. Even smaller households included dozens of people, and larger ones held hundreds. At night, this population compressed. Workspaces became sleeping spaces. Corridors became resting places. Proximity was unavoidable. You notice how sleep positions adapt to this closeness. People angle their bodies carefully, turning shoulders inward, tucking limbs close. It is not only about warmth, it is about courtesy. Taking up too much space risks waking others. Disturbing someone nearby can ripple outward through the room. This awareness creates a kind of shared discipline. Movements slow, adjustments become deliberate. Even coughing is often suppressed until it cannot be held back. Night teaches restraint. There is a quiet hierarchy even in sleep. Some people rest more lightly, aware that they may be needed. Servants remain half awake, listening for footsteps or voices. Guards sleep with one ear open, weapons within reach. Children drift more deeply, trusting the adults around them to respond first. You feel this hierarchy without seeing it. A servant rises quietly nearby, stepping carefully to avoid creaking boards. The sound of bare feet on stone fades quickly. No one speaks. The rhythm of sleep adjusts around the absence, and then closes again when the person returns. Sharing space also means sharing sound. Snoring is common. Soft, uneven breathing fills the darkness. At times it becomes almost musical, rising and falling in waves. Some find it soothing, others find it maddening. Complaints about noisy sleepers appear in letters and rules, but solutions were limited. Earplugs did not exist. Tolerance was learned early. You hear a whispered exchange nearby. Two people murmuring briefly before silence returns. Words are unnecessary. Tone carries meaning. Reassurance. A reminder to turn toward the wall. A quiet apology. In some castles, families slept together in clusters. Parents and children shared beds or pallets. This closeness provided warmth and safety, but also meant constant awareness. A child stirring at night would wake others. Caregiving did not pause when the sun set. There is uncertainty among historians about how people emotionally experienced this lack of privacy. Some argue it was normal, even comforting. Others suggest it created tension and fatigue. What seems clear is that expectations differed. Solitude was rare and not always desired. Community filled the gap. You notice how your own thoughts change in response. Instead of retreating inward, you remain partially oriented outward. Listening, aware, sleep becomes lighter, more flexible. You drift, but you do not disappear. This shared vigilance has advantages. Danger rarely arrives unnoticed. A sudden noise would wake several people at once. Fire, intrusion, illness, all had a better chance of being addressed quickly when many ears remained alert. Nighttime safety relied on numbers. At the same time, this closeness carries discomfort. You smell others more clearly. You hear their restlessness. You feel the floor vibrate when someone shifts. These sensations pull you briefly back to awareness again and again. You adjust your position slightly, mindful of those beside you. The movement is slow. Practiced, you learn quickly that sharp movements draw attention. Gentle ones fade into the background. The castle itself amplifies this effect. Stone carries sound efficiently. A cough in one corner feels closer than it should. A whispered word travels farther than intended. People lower their voices instinctively, knowing the walls listen as much as the people do. There is also the presence of strangers. Castles hosted visitors frequently. Messengers arrived late. Travelers slept wherever space allowed. You might find yourself resting beside someone you met only hours earlier. Trust was assumed out of necessity. This closeness blurs social boundaries. By day, rank is visible in clothing, is posture, to command. By night, wrapped in similar cloaks and blankets, differences soften. Everyone breathes the same air. Everyone shivers in the same cold. Some accounts suggest that this shared vulnerability created moments of quiet solidarity, stories told in whispers, shared laughter before sleep, a hand placed briefly on a shoulder in reassurance. Night allowed connections that daylight hierarchy discouraged. You feel this possibility even now. Someone nearby shifts closer. Not intruding, just aligning. The warmth is noticeable, not dramatic, but helpful. You do not pull away. Over time, your breathing begins to match the general rhythm around you. Slower, deeper. This synchronization is subtle but real. Shared space encourages shared pace. You think briefly about how unusual this would feel to someone accustomed to sleeping alone. The lack of barriers, the constant awareness, and yet, here, it is normal, expected, designed into daily life. There are moments when the closeness becomes overwhelming. A sudden snore, a restless sleeper turning repeatedly, a child whimpering from a dream. These disruptions ripple outward, waking others, then settling again. Sleep here is collective, not individual. As the hours pass, disruptions lessen. Bodies find their most stable positions. Breathing evens out. The shared space quiets. You realize that sleeping among others creates a different kind of rest. It is lighter, but also supported. You are held within a network of presence, alone, but not isolated. The castle at night is a living organism. Its inhabitants cells within a larger body. Each movement affects the whole. Each sound travels. Each warmth contributes. You let yourself sink further into this shared stillness. Your awareness does not vanish, but it softens. The presence of others becomes background rather than focus. In this environment, sleep is not an escape from community. It is an extension of it. Night does not separate people. It gathers them. And as you drift again toward rest, wrapped in cloth and surrounded by quiet breathing, you accept this closeness as part of the experience, not a flaw, but a feature of life within stone walls. Shared space, shared warmth, shared night. With that understanding settling gently in your mind, you allow sleep to deepen, knowing that you are not alone here, and that for now, that is enough. Just as you begin to drift more deeply, another presence makes itself known. It is subtle at first. A shift of weight nearby. A faint scrape against straw. Then you hear it. A soft exhale that is not quite human. Animals share this night with you, not as visitors, but as regular occupants of the castle. Dogs are the most obvious. They move freely through sleeping spaces, curling near hearths, beneath benches, beside doors. Their bodies provide warmth. Their senses provide reassurance. A dog stirring in the night often reacts to sounds long before people do. This makes them valuable. Trusted companions after dark. You hear one now, settling nearby with a quiet huff. The sound is familiar, comforting. Its body radiates heat, a small but noticeable pocket of warmth. People often welcomed this closeness. A dog at your feet meant fewer drafts and fewer worries about what might approach unseen. Cats move differently. You rarely hear them arrive. One moment, the space beside you is empty. The next, a warm weight presses gently against your side or legs. Cats were valued for their skill at controlling vermin, but they also chose sleeping spots carefully. They sought warmth instinctively. If a cat chose to rest near you, it meant you had found a good place. There are accounts that mention people believing animals could sense danger or illness before humans could. Whether or not this was true, their presence at night provided emotional comfort. In the dark, surrounded by stone and shadow, the steady breathing of an animal grounded the mind. Other animals appear too, depending on the castle. In harsher seasons, chickens or small livestock were sometimes brought indoors for protection. Their presence added warmth, but also noise and smell, a rustle of feathers, a quiet cluck, a reminder that survival often meant sharing space across species. You become aware of straw shifting again as something moves farther off, perhaps a goat or a pig kept near a storeroom. It sounds strange to modern ears, but for people here, it was practical. Animals represented food, labor, and security. Letting them freeze or be stolen was not an option. The warmth animals provide is real. Their bodies raise the temperature of enclosed spaces slightly. When several animals sleep in one area, the effect becomes noticeable. People learn to position themselves accordingly, near animals, but not too close. Warmth without disruption. Animals also influence the soundscape of the night. Dogs snore softly. Cats purr. Livestock shift and sigh. These sounds blend with human breathing, creating a layered rhythm that fills the darkness. Silence becomes rare, and perhaps that is a relief. Some people slept more easily knowing animals were nearby. Others found it distracting. Preferences varied. But adaptation was universal. You did not choose whether animals shared your sleeping space. You adjusted. You feel a cat brush past your arm, then settle near your shoulder. Its body curls tightly, conserving heat. The contact is brief, but calming. Animals do not judge. They do not worry about hierarchy. They respond only to warmth and safety. There is evidence in household records that animals were deliberately allowed into certain sleeping areas at night. Guards kept dogs close. Kitchens sheltered cats. Even noble chambers sometimes included lapdogs. This was not indulgence. It was strategy. Animals also served as early warning systems. A dog growling softly could alert sleepers before a human guard noticed anything amiss. In a world without alarms or locks, you could trust fully. This mattered. You notice how people respond instinctively to animal movement. A hand reaches out briefly to steady a dog. A whisper calms a restless creature. These interactions are gentle, practiced. Animals belong here. The presence of animals also changes smell. Fur carries its own scent, earthy and warm. It blends with straw and wool. For some, this smell is comforting. For others, it fades quickly into the background. You consider how different this is from modern ideas of sleeping spaces. Today, animals are often excluded from bedrooms or confined to specific places. Here, boundaries are fluid. Life is shared more fully. There is also an understanding that animals bring risk. Fleas travel easily between species. Waste must be managed. Noise can wake sleepers. Yet the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. Warmth, security, companionship. You feel the cat shift again, pressing closer for a moment before settling. Its purring vibrates faintly through your clothing. The sensation is oddly grounding. Your breathing slows further, matching the steady rhythm beside you. Dogs farther off adjust their positions too, stretching, then curling tighter. Their movements are slow, unhurried. Night is familiar to them. They know when to be alert and when to rest. There are moments when animal noise breaks the quiet abruptly. A dog barks once, sharp and sudden, reacting to something unseen. Immediately, people stir. Someone whispers a command. The sound stops. Silence returns. Thicker than before. This response is immediate. Coordinated. No panic. Just awareness. Animals and humans share responsibility for night watchfulness. Even while sleeping. You settle again. Reassured. The brief interruption fades. Your body relaxes back into stillness. There remains some uncertainty about how common indoor animals truly were in all castles. Larger, wealthier households likely managed animals more selectively. Smaller or frontier castles were more pragmatic. Conditions varied. What remains consistent is the willingness to adapt. You reflect on how animals soften the harshness of the environment. Stone, cold, darkness. Animals introduce movement, warmth, and a sense of life continuing even at rest. As the hours deepen, animal movement slows. Purring fades. Breathing evens out. The shared space grows quieter. You are no longer startled by the presence of fur or sound. It has become part of the night, as expected as the cold or the dark. Sleeping in a medieval castle means accepting animals as part of the sleeping world, not distractions, but companions, not intrusions, but allies. With that thought drifting gently through your mind, you let your awareness soften again. The warmth nearby steadies you. The quiet breathing surrounds you. Stone walls, human presence, animal life, all held together through the long hours of night. And as you sink back toward rest, you do so knowing that you are watched over not only by guards and walls, but by quiet creatures curled close, listening to the same darkness, sharing the same night. A sound pulls you back toward the surface of sleep. It is not loud, not sudden, but distinct enough to catch your attention. Footsteps, slow and deliberate. They echo softly along stone, changing shape as they pass through corridors and stairwells. At night, sound travels differently inside a castle, without daytime noise to mask it. Every movement feels closer than it is. You listen carefully, letting the rhythm of the steps reveal their purpose. Guards make a particular sound. Their pace is steady, practiced. Armor shifts quietly with each step. Leather creaks. Metal brushes metal with restraint. This is the sound of someone moving with intention, not hurry. The castle never sleeps completely. Even in its quietest hours, watchfulness continues. Guards patrol walls, gates, and inner passages, marking time with their movement and voices. Their presence shapes the soundscape of the night, providing reassurance as much as vigilance. You hear a distant call, a voice announcing the hour. The words echo, distorted by stone and distance. But the meaning is clear enough. Time is passing. The night is being measured, not left to drift endlessly. These calls are anchors, reminders that order still exists in darkness. Sound behaves strangely here. A cough nearby feels intimate, immediate. A door closing several rooms away sounds closer than expected. Stone reflects and carries noise efficiently. bending it around corners. People learn to interpret these echoes, distinguishing between familiar patterns and those that warranted attention. You become aware of how still you are. Listening. Others are listening too, even in sleep. The shared awareness of sound never fully fades. It is part of survival. Sudden silence can be as meaningful as sudden noise. A drip echoes somewhere, water seeping through stone. The sound repeats at irregular intervals, a quiet reminder of dampness that never fully leaves these walls. Over time, it becomes background, like breathing or the rustle of fabric. Wind joins the chorus as well. Outside, it brushes against towers and battlements. Inside, it whispers through narrow openings, carrying faint tones that rise and fall. The castle responds with creaks and groans. Wood adjusting, stone settling. These sounds are familiar, expected. They signal nothing more than the building existing. You notice how your body reacts to sound now. Instead of tension, there is recognition. A footstep belongs to a guard. A creak belongs to the castle. A sigh belongs to a sleeper nearby. This categorization allows you to rest without fear. There are moments when unfamiliar sounds break this pattern. A sudden clang, a shout. In those moments, the castle wakes instantly. People rise. Dogs bark. Torches flare. But tonight, nothing like that happens. The sounds remain ordinary, predictable. Historical records suggest that people relied heavily on sound for nighttime awareness. Without artificial lighting, hearing became the primary sense after dark. Rules existed about moving quietly. Slamming doors at night was discouraged. Shouting was reserved for emergencies. You remember earlier how the light-shaped behavior. Sound does the same. Quiet movements, soft voices. Night demands respect. As the hours deepen, sounds thin out. Footsteps grow less frequent. Voices fade. Even the drip seems to slow. Or perhaps you simply stop noticing it as much. Your mind adjusts, filtering less actively. You hear a soft snore nearby. Then another. The rhythms overlap. Separate. Then overlap again. Breathing fills the space left by departing noise. It becomes the dominant sound of the room. Steady and human. At times, the castle feels enormous. At others, it feels intimate, held together by these small sounds. A cough, a sigh, a footstep passing beyond a wall. Sound shrinks distance, making you feel connected to unseen others. You turn your head slightly, pressing fabric closer to your ear. The position dampens sound, offering a small pocket of quiet. People learn tricks like this, ways to rest without losing awareness entirely. There is debate among historians about how deeply people slept under these conditions. Some argue that constant noise prevented deep rest. Others suggest that familiarity allowed sleepers to tune out most sounds. The truth likely depended on the individual. Adaptation varied. You feel yourself drifting again. Thoughts loosening, sounds blur at the edges. The castle continues its low murmur, but it no longer demands your attention. A guard passes once more. Closer this time. You hear the soft scrape of his boots, the faint clink of equipment. Then the sound moves on, fading into stone. This passing reassures you. Someone is awake. Someone is watching. You can rest a little more fully knowing that vigilance continues beyond your own awareness. The night stretches on. Bells mark another hour. Their tone is muted by distance and walls, but it carries weight. Time is moving. Morning will come. Eventually. You notice how sound changes again just before deeper sleep claims you. It seems to recede. Not because it stops, but because your mind lets it go. This release feels earned, not forced. The castle holds its rhythm. Guards walk. Stone breathes. People sleep. Animals shift quietly. All of it continues whether you listen or not. And as your breathing slows and your thoughts dissolve into softer shapes, sound becomes less a signal and more a cradle. It surrounds you, steady and familiar, guiding you gently into the deeper hours of the night, where awareness fades but never fully disappears, and rest, however imperfect, finally takes hold. Sleep loosens its hold when the body makes a quiet demand. It begins as a pressure, faint at first, then slowly impossible to ignore. Even in the deepest hours of the night, your body does not stop being a body. Inside a medieval castle, this simple fact shapes behavior in ways both practical and uncomfortable. You become aware of it gradually. A tightening in the lower abdomen, a subtle shift of focus, the knowledge that remaining still will not make the sensation disappear. This is one of the most ordinary realities of castle life, and one of the least romantic. Nighttime brings needs that cannot be postponed until morning. You do not rise immediately. No one does. Movement at night carries consequences. Cold rushes in the moment you leave your bedding. Drafts find skin. Awareness sharpens. Still, the pressure grows. And eventually, you accept that rest must be interrupted. Nearby, you hear another sleeper shift. Perhaps they feel the same thing. These moments often overlap. Bodies follow similar rhythms, especially when meals and routines are shared. You sit up slowly, careful not to disturb others. The straw rustles softly beneath you. Fabric slides. You pause, listening, making sure no one else is moving in a way that would suggest urgency or danger. All remains calm. Within reach, you locate the chamber pot. It is heavier than you expect, made of ceramic or metal, depending on status and availability. Its lid fits loosely, designed to reduce smell rather than contain it fully. Chamber pots are common in castles, placed strategically near sleeping areas. They are not elegant, but they are essential. There is a reason these vessels appear so frequently in household records and inventories. They represent a practical solution to a problem no architecture can solve. Castles were built upward and outward, not around plumbing. Staircases were narrow. Courtyards were cold. Latrines existed, but reaching them at night was inconvenient at best and dangerous at worst. You position the pot carefully, moving slowly, guided more by memory than sight. Darkness complicates everything. Candles are rarely lit for this purpose. Flame invites fire. Instead, people relied on familiarity, learning the shapes of their surroundings through repeated use. You lower yourself carefully, balancing comfort, privacy, and speed. The act itself is quiet, practiced. This is not an unusual interruption. It is part of the rhythm of the night. Privacy here is relative. Curtains or hangings may offer a visual barrier, but sound and presence remain. People learned early to grant each other discretion, looking away, remaining still, pretending not to notice. Social courtesy extended even into these moments. The smell rises briefly, sharp and unmistakable. It blends with the already complex air of the room. You replace the lid quickly, reducing its impact. The scent lingers, but fades faster than you might expect. Familiarity dulls the senses. Some people used cloth soaked in herbs to mask these odors. Others accepted them as inevitable. There was no perfect solution, only management. You consider the alternative, leaving the room, navigating dark corridors, descending stone stairs in bare feet or thin shoes, facing cold, wind, and the possibility of stumbling. For many, especially children or the elderly, the chamber pot was the safer choice. There is discussion among scholars about how often people used shared latrines at night versus chamber pots. Practices likely varied by rank and location. What is clear is that convenience often outweighed ideals of cleanliness when darkness and cold pressed in. You stand slowly, careful to maintain balance. The floor is uneven. Stone absorbs warmth from your feet immediately. You step back into your bedding with relief, pulling fabric close again. The interruption has sharpened your awareness. Sleep will take a moment to return. Nearby, someone else shifts, perhaps responding to sound or smell. No one comments. Words are unnecessary. Everyone understands. The pot will remain there until morning. Then it will be emptied, cleaned, reused. This task often fell to servants, a fact noted in several household regulations. The work was unpleasant but routine. Night passed its burdens forward into day. You notice now how these practical interruptions shape sleep patterns. People did not expect uninterrupted rest. Waking during the night was normal. Bodies adapted. Minds followed. Some even used these moments of wakefulness intentionally. Quiet prayers, brief reflection, checking on children. Night was segmented, not continuous. You lie back and adjust your position. The cold has crept in during your movement. You tuck the blanket tighter, pressing knees together to conserve warmth. Breathing slows again, but not immediately. The presence of the chamber pot nearby feels oddly grounding. It is a reminder of the human reality beneath layers of stone and ritual. Castles were not just symbols of power. They were lived in, bodily spaces. There are stories that mention people accidentally knocking over pots in the dark. These incidents were memorable, unpleasant, and often recounted with humor afterward. Such accidents reinforced careful habits. Touch before moving. Move slowly. Know your space. You imagine the sounds such an accident would produce. The splash. The startled reactions. The sudden wakefulness of everyone nearby. Tonight. Thankfully, nothing like that occurs. As your breathing steadies, you think about how rarely this aspect of medieval life is discussed openly. Yet it shaped nightly experience as much as cold or darkness. The body does not suspend its needs for architecture or ceremony. You turn slightly, settling back into the warmest position you can manage. The interruption fades from immediate awareness, becoming just another part of the night. In the distance, you hear a guard's footsteps again, marking another stretch of time passing. The sound reassures you. Order continues. Your thoughts drift briefly to the design of latrines, often built into outer walls, allowing waste to fall into pits or moats. Using them at night required light and caution. Many chose to avoid the risk. The chamber pot remains the practical solution. Flawed, but reliable. Its presence near the bed is as much a part of castle sleep as straw or blankets. You close your eyes again, allowing the body to relax after its brief task. Muscles loosen. Awareness softens. The night continues. Indifferent to small interruptions. People sleep. Wake. Sleep again. Needs arise and are met. As rest returns, you understand that medieval sleep was not about escaping the body. It was about accommodating it within limits imposed by environment and design. And as you drift once more towards sleep, the practical realities of the night settle quietly into the background, leaving you wrapped again in fabric. Breath steady. The castle holding you through the dark hours. One ordinary human moment at a time. As sleep returns after that small interruption, you become more aware of your own skin, not in a dramatic way, but through tiny signals that accumulate slowly. A faint itch at the ankle, a prickle behind the knee, a sensation that makes you shift, then pause, then shift again. Bedding in a medieval castle does not stay still, and neither do the small creatures that often live within it. Straw mattresses provide lift and insulation, but they also create perfect hiding places. Fleas thrive here. Lice too. They move easily between people, animals, fabric, and rushes spread on the floor. No amount of care could eliminate them entirely. People knew this. They planned for it. They endured it. You scratch lightly, careful not to make noise or disturb anyone nearby. Scratching is almost instinctive, but it also draws attention. A sudden movement in the night stands out. You restrain yourself, letting the itch fade rather than flare. Many medieval texts mention parasites matter-of-factly. They appear in household advice, medical notes, even humor. Their presence was irritating, but expected. Cleanliness existed, but it followed different rhythms. Washing bedding required water, time, and labor. In winter, it was especially difficult. As a result, insects returned quickly, even after efforts to remove them. People developed strategies. Bedding was aired whenever possible. Straw was replaced. Garments were beaten and brushed. Some applied herbal mixtures believed to repel insects. Others accepted bites as unavoidable, focusing instead on minimizing discomfort. You feel another itch, this time along your wrist. You press the fabric tighter against your skin, creating a barrier. Clothing served as protection as much as warmth. Long sleeves and layered garments reduced access to skin. Sleeping naked, as many do today, would have been unthinkable for several reasons. This among them: blankets offer little defense. Fleas move easily through woven fabric. The sensation is brief, sharp, then gone. Annoying rather than painful. Over time, the body learns to filter it out. There is debate among historians about how severe infestations truly were in castles. Some argue that wealthier households managed better conditions through frequent replacement and cleaning. Others point out that large populations and constant movement made control difficult regardless of resources. The truth likely varied widely. You notice that itching lessens as your body relaxes. Tension amplifies sensation. Calm dulls it. This is another reason people valued familiarity. Knowing what to expect made it easier to ignore. You adjust your position again, tucking fabric beneath your chin. This movement is slow, deliberate. Each shift risks stirring straw, drawing attention. You learn to move like others do. Gradual, quiet, efficient. Nearby, someone else scratches briefly, then stops. The sound is barely audible, but you notice it. These shared small discomforts create a strange sense of solidarity. Everyone deals with the same irritations. No one comments. Fleas are not the only concern. Lice live in hair and clothing seams. Their presence brings persistent itching, especially around the scalp and neck. Combs designed to remove them exist, often finely toothed and used regularly. Grooming was not vanity, it was necessity. At night, however, there is little to be done. You accept what cannot be addressed until daylight. Sleep adapts. You become aware of the weight of the blanket again. Heavier coverings help in more ways than warmth. Pressure reduces sensation. It anchors the body, making small irritations easier to ignore. People learned this through experience, not theory. Some preferred sleeping with minimal bedding in warmer seasons to avoid attracting insects. Others favored heavier layers year-round for comfort and security. Choices depended on tolerance, climate, and availability. You consider how this constant background discomfort shaped sleep patterns. People likely slept lighter, waking more often. Dreams may have been fragmented. Deep, uninterrupted rest was rare. And yet, people managed. Generations adapted. Expectations shifted. Sleep was not judged by how comfortable it felt, but by whether it restored enough strength to continue. You notice how your thoughts drift, despite occasional itching. The body learns to prioritize rest over reaction. It is a quiet skill, developed through repetition. Some households used bedding filled with materials believed to repel insects, such as certain herbs or dried leaves. Their effectiveness is uncertain, but belief itself offered comfort. Feeling proactive mattered. You inhale slowly, focusing on breath rather than sensation. The itch fades. The moment passes. Over time, your body finds a rhythm that minimizes disturbance. You keep limbs tucked. Fabric stays close. Movement slows. The castle around you remains unchanged. Stone holds cold. Air stays still. Sounds remain distant. Within this larger stability, small irritations lose importance. You realize that medieval sleep was not defined by comfort in the modern sense. It was defined by tolerance, by the ability to remain still despite minor discomforts, by acceptance. There is something strangely grounding about this. The body simplifies, needs narrow, warmth, rest, awareness. As the night deepens, itching becomes less frequent, or perhaps less noticeable. Fatigue wins. Sensation dulls. You feel yourself sinking again, closer to true rest. Not perfect, not uninterrupted, but sufficient. The shared space breathes quietly. People nearby shift less often now. Animals remain still. Guards continue their distant rounds. You close your eyes fully, letting the remaining sensations blur. The occasional itch no longer pulls you back. It exists, but it no longer matters. In this way, sleep in a medieval castle teaches patience. It teaches endurance. It teaches how to rest within limits rather than waiting for ideal conditions. And, as your body finally settles into a deeper stillness, you accept the night as it is, imperfect, alive, shared, wrapped in fabric, supported by straw, surrounded by quiet breathing. You drift again toward rest, knowing that even with discomfort, sleep will come. It always does. Sleep deepens and loosens its grip in cycles. And in one of those lighter moments, a different feeling surfaces, not physical this time, but mental, a quiet alertness that never fully disappears. Inside a medieval castle, even at rest, a part of you remains watchful. This is not paranoia. It is habit shaped by environment. You sense it in the way your body reacts to unfamiliar sounds. A creak that does not match the usual settling of stone. A pause in the rhythm of breathing nearby. These things register instantly, even if they do not fully wake you. Sleep here is layered. Part of you rests. Another part listens. Security shapes every aspect of castle life, including how people sleep. Thick walls offer protection, but they also create vulnerabilities. Fire spreads quickly in enclosed spaces. Doors can be forced. Ladders can be raised silently against outer walls. These risks never vanish completely, even in peacetime. You remember the barred doors and locked gates you passed earlier. At night, these measures matter more. Gates are secured. Chains are drawn. Wooden bars slide into place with heavy finality. These sounds echo through the castle, signaling that the outside world has been shut out as much as possible. Still, complete safety is an illusion. People know this. That knowledge shapes how they rest. Weapons are kept close. A knife beneath a pillow. A spear leaned within reach. Even those who rarely expect trouble maintain these habits. They are passed down through instruction and example. You feel a hard shape beneath your hand as you shift slightly. Perhaps a small knife wrapped in cloth. Its presence is reassuring rather than threatening. You do not expect to use it. You simply know it is there. Guards remain awake throughout the night, rotating shifts to maintain vigilance. Their footsteps and calls are not only practical, they are psychological. Hearing them allows others to relax just enough. Someone is watching. Someone will respond first. You notice how fear feels different here than in stories. It is not sharp or dramatic. It is low and constant, like the cold, managed rather than eliminated. People learn to live alongside it. Fire is the greatest concern during sleep. Flames that warm by day become enemies by night. That is why hearths are banked carefully. Candles extinguished. Patrols include checks for smoke and sparks. A sleeping castle is a vulnerable castle. There are recorded cases of entire sections lost to accidental fire. These stories circulate quietly, reinforcing caution. Even children understand the danger. Do not play with flame. Do not knock over a candle. Do not sleep too close to the hearth. You lie still, listening, aware that the smell of smoke remains faint but controlled. No sharp scent, no crackle beyond embers. This is good. You relax a fraction more. Another concern is intrusion, not always from enemies, but from thieves. Castles held valuable goods, food, tools, textiles, even within walls. Theft was possible. Sleeping lightly meant noticing movement where it did not belong. You hear a footstep again, closer this time. Your body tenses briefly, then releases as the rhythm reveals itself. Guard, familiar pace, familiar sound. This constant low level of awareness affects how deeply people sleep. Some historians suggest that truly deep sleep was rare in such environments. Others argue that familiarity dulled fear over time. Both may be true. People adapted differently. You feel your own awareness ebb and flow. At moments, you drift far enough that sounds blur. Then a shift pulls you closer to waking. This pattern repeats without frustration. It feels normal here. There is also the matter of status. Higher-ranking individuals sleep behind thicker doors, with guards nearby. Their sense of security is different. Still, even they remain alert to certain risks. No one is immune to fire. No one ignores the possibility of unrest. You imagine a noble chamber with heavy curtains, thick bedding, and perhaps a private hearth. Even there, sleep is cautious. A servant nearby listens. A guard waits outside. Layers of protection exist, but none are absolute. You notice how darkness itself influences fear. Shapes shift. Sounds distort. The mind fills gaps. Medieval culture acknowledged this. Night was associated with danger, temptation, and the unknown. Stories warned of what moved after dark. Yet night also offered cover and quiet. Meetings happened. Plans were whispered. Darkness protected as much as it threatened. You turn slightly. Adjusting your position, the movement is small, controlled. Even this feels like a calculated decision. Do not expose yourself. Do not make noise. You realize that sleeping here involves trust. Trust in walls, in guards, in routines, in the people around you. That trust allows rest to happen at all. There are moments when a shout echoes from the wall, sudden and loud. Tonight, it does not come, but the possibility remains. You sense how quickly calm could shatter. Your breathing slows again. Awareness recedes. Fear does not vanish, but it no longer dominates. It becomes part of the background, like cold or smell. People here do not expect sleep to erase vulnerability. They expect it to coexist with it. Rest happens within limits, not beyond them. You drift again, half dreaming, half listening. Images blend with sound. Stone corridors, flickering light, footsteps passing. In this state, you understand something fundamental. Sleeping in a medieval castle is not about feeling safe. It is about feeling prepared. Prepared for noise, for interruption, for the unexpected. That preparedness becomes calming. Knowing what to do if woken, where to move, who will respond. These thoughts settle the mind rather than disturb it. You feel the knife beneath your hand again and relax your fingers away from it. No need. Not now. The castle continues its quiet vigilance around you. Guards walk. Doors remain barred. Fires stay low. And as your awareness finally sinks deeper, you allow yourself to rest within this structure of watchfulness. Sleep comes not as an escape, but as a pause, a controlled surrender. In the dark, surrounded by stone and quiet readiness, you find a balance between rest and alertness. Not perfect, not complete, but enough to carry you through the night. Secure not because danger is gone, but because it is understood. At some point in the night, your awareness drifts outward again, and you realize just how large the space around you truly is. The great hall breathes differently from smaller chambers, even at rest. It feels vast, its ceiling lost in darkness, its corners softened by shadow. This is where many people sleep, not because it is ideal, but because it is available. You sense the scale through sound first. Breathing echoes faintly. A cough travels farther. A footstep sounds heavier here, amplified by open space and hard surfaces. The great hall does not absorb noise. It reflects it, stretches it, reminds everyone that they are part of something shared. During the day, this room was a place of hierarchy and display. At night, those distinctions blur, but they never disappear entirely. Where you sleep in the hall still matters. Near the hearth is best. Against an outer wall is colder. Close to the high table suggests higher status. Even after dark, you feel the unevenness of the floor beneath bedding. Stone slabs shift slightly under straw and rushes. The ground is not forgiving. It reminds you of its presence whenever you move. People learn where the smoother patches are, where old repairs have softened edges. Bodies are arranged with care. People lie parallel rather than scattered. This allows movement without stepping over others. Pathways remain clear for those who must rise during the night. Order persists even in sleep. You notice how proximity to the hearth shapes rest. Those closest benefit from residual warmth and light memory. Those farther away rely more on layers and shared body heat. People negotiate these positions daily. Arrival time matters. Rank matters. Habit matters. The smell here is layered more densely than in smaller rooms. Smoke lingers longer. Human presence is stronger. The scent of food from earlier meals still clings to wood and stone. This mix feels heavy but familiar, like a blanket made of air. You become aware of the benches lining the walls. Some people sleep sitting up, backs against timber, legs pulled close. This position conserves warmth and allows quicker response if needed. It is not comfortable by modern standards, but it is practical. Others sleep beneath tables, using the heavy wood as shelter from drafts. The underside blocks air movement and creates a sense of enclosure. These spaces are claimed early in the evening. They are prized. There is a quiet understanding about where children sleep, close to adults, close to warmth, rarely alone. Their breathing is lighter, their movements more frequent. Adults adjust around them instinctively. You hear a child murmur in sleep, then settle again as a hand rests briefly on their shoulder. No words, just presence. Care continues through the night. In the great hall, privacy is limited to what you can create with posture and stillness. Turning your face toward the wall, pulling fabric over your head, closing your eyes and trusting that others will respect the boundary. You realize how much social behavior carries into sleep. Courtesy remains. People avoid stepping too close. They move slowly. They whisper apologies if contact is unavoidable. These habits maintain harmony in shared rest. There is also an awareness of fire here that is sharper than elsewhere. The hearth is larger, its embers broader. It provided light and heat for many hours earlier. But now it must be watched carefully. Someone is always responsible, even while resting nearby. You sense that responsibility passing quietly between people. A shift, a glance, a moment of alertness, then rest again. This shared guardianship reduces individual burden. The great hall feels exposed, yet also communal. No single door separates you from others. Instead, the group itself provides security. Many eyes, many ears, many bodies ready to respond. There are accounts that describe great halls as uncomfortable places to sleep. Cold, noisy, drafty. Others describe them as lively, warm, reassuring. Both can be true. Experience depends on season, population, and your place within it. You adjust your position slightly, careful not to disturb those beside you. The movement is small, almost ceremonial. Each adjustment acknowledges the presence of others. Above you, The ceiling timbers creak softly as temperatures shift. The sound travels down the long room, passing over sleepers without waking most of them. Familiarity dulls concern. You notice how dreams feel different here. Lighter. Interrupted. Images flicker and fade quickly. Sleep in the great hall rarely plunges deep. It hovers, ready to break. This readiness has value. If something happens, response is immediate. A noise brings many awake at once. There is no isolation. You think about how this contrasts with modern ideas of rest as a solitary retreat. Here, rest is collective. Your sleep depends on the behavior of others. Their stillness supports yours. As hours pass, the hall grows quieter. Early sleepers remain still. Late arrivals settle. Movements slow. The room finds a shared rhythm. You hear the guards call again, marking another hour. The sound fills the hall briefly, then fades. Time passes. Your body relaxes further now, not because conditions improve, but because they stabilize. Nothing new has happened. Predictability returns. The great hall becomes less a place and more a presence, a container holding many small lives in pause. You feel the cold press in again, reminding you to tuck fabric tighter. Someone nearby does the same. Movements mirror each other unconsciously. In this shared space, individual discomfort blends into collective endurance. No one sleeps perfectly. Everyone sleeps enough. You let your thoughts drift, carried by the low murmur of breathing and the weight of the night. The hall no longer feels vast. It feels inhabited. Sleeping here teaches you something simple and enduring. Rest does not require isolation. It requires trust. Trust that others will watch, respond, and share the burden of night. As your awareness softens again, you allow yourself to sink back into this communal stillness. The great hall holds you, not gently, but reliably. Stone walls, timber beams, bodies at rest, all waiting together for the slow return of morning light. Your rest shifts again as you imagine a different sleeping space within the same walls. Not the great hall this time, but a chamber set apart. A room with a door that closes more fully, with thicker walls and fewer drafts. This is where nobles sleep, or at least where they try to. Privacy exists here in greater measure, but peace is not guaranteed. You feel the difference immediately. The air is slightly calmer. Sounds arrive softened, filtered by wood and fabric. The room is smaller, easier to warm, easier to control. Yet even here, stone asserts itself. Cold radiates from the walls. Damp lingers in corners. The castle never truly loosens its grip. The bed itself is raised, supported by a wooden frame laced with rope. The ropes creak softly when you move, stretching and settling under weight. This structure lifts you away from the floor, reducing dampness and cold. It is a clear improvement, and one that marks status unmistakably. On top of the frame rests a mattress stuffed with straw, wool, or feathers, depending on wealth. Feather beds are softer, but they shift easily, forming hollows that must be adjusted. Straw beds are firmer, more predictable. Preferences vary. Comfort is subjective even here. Layers of bedding cover the mattress, sheets of linen, blankets of wool, perhaps a fur coverlet in colder months. These layers trap warmth more effectively than anything available in shared spaces. You feel the difference as you settle in. The cold still exists, but it presses less insistently. Curtains surround the bed on all sides, hung from a wooden frame. When drawn, they create a small enclosed world. Air within this space warms slightly from your body heat. Drafts are slowed. Light from outside fades further. This enclosure feels protective, almost cocoon-like. These bed hangings serve another purpose. Privacy. In a castle, true privacy is rare. Even nobles share their chambers with servants, attendant, and guards. Curtains provide visual separation at least, allowing rest without constant awareness of others watching. You hear movement beyond the curtains. A servant shifts on a pallet near the door. Their presence is reassuring. They sleep lightly, ready to respond if needed. Nobles rarely sleep alone. Someone is always within call. The room smells different from the great hall. Less smoke, more fabric. Wood furniture holds the scent of polish and age. The air feels heavier, but cleaner. Windows are shuttered tightly, reducing drafts, but also limiting fresh air. This is a calculated trade. You notice a small chest near the bed. Inside are personal items, clothing, documents, perhaps a valuable object kept close at night. Theft is less likely here. But caution remains. Important things stay within reach. There is a quiet tension that accompanies this comfort. With separation comes vulnerability. Fewer people nearby means fewer immediate witnesses. That is why guards remain close, even if unseen. The sense of safety relies on layers, not isolation. You lie still and listen. Sounds reach you faintly now. A guard's call is muffled. Footsteps blur into the background. The castle feels farther away, as though you have stepped into a smaller version of it. Yet fear does not vanish. Fire remains a concern. Curtains and bedding are flammable. Candles are used carefully, often extinguished before sleep. A small lamp might burn low on a shelf, watched by a servant until embers fade. You imagine the careful rituals that precede sleep here. Checking shutters, ensuring candles are out, drawing curtains, positioning weapons nearby. These actions repeat nightly, reinforcing habit and calm. The bed itself creaks softly as you shift. The ropes respond, adjusting to your weight. This sound is gentle, familiar. Many people grew up with it, finding silence more unsettling than noise. You feel the advantage of elevation now. The cold is less sharp. Damp does not press upward. The mattress yields slightly, supporting your body more evenly. Muscles relax more fully. And yet, sleep remains segmented. You drift. Wake lightly. Drift again. Comfort improves. But it does not erase the rhythms shaped by centuries of habit. There is debate among scholars about how much better nobles slept compared to others. Some argue that improved bedding and privacy made a significant difference. Others point out that responsibility, anxiety, and vigilance countered these comforts. Leadership brings its own restlessness. You consider this as you lie there. Even in this chamber, thoughts intrude. Decisions made during the day, concerns about land, loyalty, weather, conflict. Sleep here carries weight. The mind does not fully empty. You hear a faint movement near the door. The servant shifts position, perhaps responding to a sound only they noticed. Then stillness returns. The curtains hold warmth effectively. Inside this small space, the air feels slightly warmer than the room beyond. Breath warms it further. You adjust the curtain edge, sealing a small gap. The difference is immediate. This enclosed bed feels like a structure within a structure. Castle, chamber, bed, layers of defense and comfort nested together. Each layer reduces exposure a little more. You notice how darkness deepens inside the curtains. Without moving light, the space becomes almost abstract. Sensations narrow. Sound dulls. Touch dominates. Sleep deepens a fraction more here. Not absolute, not dreamless, but steadier. You understand now why these beds were coveted. Not for luxury alone, but for the control they offered. Control over air, light, and exposure. Still, you are aware that this comfort depends on others. Servants maintain the bedding. Guards maintain the perimeter. Fire is managed carefully elsewhere. Sleep is supported by an entire system. As hours pass, the room remains stable. No sudden drafts. No loud noises. The castle holds steady around you. You drift again, sinking into a longer stretch of rest. Thoughts blur. Sensations soften. In this quieter space, you experience the closest thing to uninterrupted sleep the castle allows. Not perfect, but meaningful. And as your breathing slows and the bed cradles you within its layered defenses, you rest with the knowledge that even here, comfort is conditional. It exists not in isolation, but within the careful balance of vigilance, habit, and shared effort. Wrapped in fabric, elevated from stone, sheltered by wood and curtain, you sleep as well as one can inside these walls, waiting with everyone else for the slow, inevitable return of morning. Your sleep lightens again, not because of sound or cold, but because someone nearby stirs with purpose. This kind of movement feels different, careful, focused. It belongs to those whose nights are shaped by responsibility rather than rest. Women and children experience castle nights in their own distinct rhythms. And as awareness returns, you begin to notice how caregiving continues long after darkness settles in. A child shifts nearby, breathing unevenly. Their small body radiates warmth, but it also loses heat quickly. You see how adults instinctively adjust around them, drawing fabric closer, tucking edges, creating a pocket of warmth without fully waking. This happens almost automatically. Many people here have done it hundreds of times. Children rarely sleep alone in castles. They rest near mothers, older siblings, nurses, or attendants. Not only for comfort, but for safety. Night magnifies vulnerability. A child startled by sound or dream needs reassurance immediately. Distance delays that reassurance. You hear a soft murmur. A woman whispers calming words, barely audible. The child settles again. No one else stirs. These small interventions keep the night from unraveling. Women often sleep lighter for this reason. Their rest is segmented, shaped by listening as much as breathing. They wake to small sounds that others ignore. A whimper, a cough, a restless shift. Caregiving does not pause simply because the day has ended. This pattern appears frequently in letters and household accounts. Night duties were understood as part of daily life. Feeding infants, comforting children, tending to the sick. These tasks belonged largely to women, regardless of status. You notice how bodies are arranged to support this role. Children placed between adults, infants close to the chest for warmth and access, bedding arranged to allow quick movement without stepping away entirely. There is a practical wisdom here. Cold is less severe when bodies cluster. Fear is easier to manage when someone familiar is close. These arrangements are not sentimental. They are efficient. You hear the faint sound of fabric moving as a woman adjusts her position, rising just enough to check on a child. She touches their forehead briefly, assessing warmth. Satisfied, she settles back down. The movement is smooth, practiced, barely disruptive. This kind of night care extends beyond children. Older family members receive similar attention. Someone coughing nearby draws quiet concern. A hand offers water from a cup kept close. These moments happen in near silence, guided by familiarity rather than urgency. There is discussion among historians about how exhausting this constant care must have been. Some argue that women adapted to lighter sleep patterns naturally. Others suggest chronic fatigue was common. Both may be true. Survival required adaptation, but it did not erase strain. You sense this strain in the way caregivers move. Efficient, but careful. Quick, but gentle. They do not fully surrender to sleep, even when they rest. Children experience the night differently. Dreams come more easily. Fear arrives without warning. Darkness transforms familiar spaces into uncertain ones. A child wakes suddenly. Breath quick. Searching for reassurance. It comes immediately. A voice. A touch. Sometimes a brief prayer. Sometimes a story whispered just loud enough to anchor the mind. These responses are learned. They calm without waking others. You notice how adults shield children from the harshest realities of the night. They position themselves between children and drafts, between children and noise, between children and fear. This shielding continues until morning. In noble households, wet nurses and attendants share these duties. In smaller households, family members take turns. Care is distributed according to capacity rather than comfort. You hear a soft humming, barely more than breath, a tune repeated countless times. Music without performance. Its purpose is not beauty, but calm. The sound fades as the child settles again. Night care also includes preparation for morning. Clothes are laid within reach. Small tasks are completed quietly to ease the coming day, even in rest. Thought moves forward. You feel how this constant readiness shapes the atmosphere. Sleep here is responsive, flexible, ready to bend rather than break. Women also manage the practical needs of the night. They remember where the chamber pot is placed for children. They keep water nearby. They anticipate needs before they arise. This anticipation reduces disruption. Children sense this attention even while asleep. Their breathing slows when reassurance arrives. Their bodies relax. Night becomes survivable rather than frightening. You think about how this shared closeness influences emotional development. Children grow up surrounded by others at night. Solitude is rare. Fear is met quickly. Comfort is communal. Some scholars suggest that this environment fostered resilience. Others argue it limited independence. The truth likely varies by individual. What remains clear is that night care was central to daily life. You hear another quiet interaction nearby. A woman shifts a blanket away from a child's face, ensuring easy breathing. The movement is gentle, precise. The castle itself seems to respond, settling around these small acts of care. Sounds remain low. Air stays still. The night holds. You realize that sleep here is layered not only by space, but by responsibility. Some rest deeply. Others hover near wakefulness. Both states are necessary. Caregivers rarely experience uninterrupted sleep. Their rest arrives in fragments. Yet they continue, night after night. This endurance sustains the household as much as any wall or guard. You feel gratitude, not directed at any one person, but at the system itself, a network of attention that allows the vulnerable to rest. As hours pass, children move less. Caregivers relax slightly. Their listening remains. But it softens. The night grows quieter. You drift again, aware that these patterns will repeat until dawn. A cough, a dream, a need, met quietly, efficiently. Sleeping in a medieval castle means understanding that rest is shared unevenly. Some sleep more, some watch more, all contribute. And as your awareness fades again, you carry with you the sense that night here is held together not only by stone and vigilance, but by care, quiet, constant, and deeply human. Wrapped in this awareness, you settle once more into rest, knowing that even in darkness, someone nearby remains attentive, guiding the night gently toward morning. The night grows heavier as winter tightens its grip. You feel the difference even without opening your eyes. Cold in winter is not the same as cold earlier in the year. It has weight. It presses inward with patience, finding every weakness the castle cannot fully defend. Stone that felt merely cool before now feels actively cold, as if it is drawing warmth away on purpose. Winter nights in a medieval castle stretch longer than you expect. Darkness arrives early and lingers. The hours between sunset and sunrise feel vast, especially when warmth fades quickly and fires are allowed to die down. People speak less during these months. Movement slows. Energy is conserved instinctively. You sense how the entire household adjusts. Bedding is thicker. More bodies gather closer together. Doors that might have been left ajar in warmer seasons are now shut firmly. Even then, the cold finds a way. Your breath feels sharper when you inhale. The air seems thinner. Drear. You exhale slowly, feeling a small pocket of warmth form briefly in front of your face before disappearing again. Some people pull fabric up to cover their mouths, trapping that warmth. Others avoid doing so, fearing stale air. Both habits exist side by side. You shift slightly, feeling the straw beneath you resist more stiffly than before. Cold stiffens everything. Wood creaks louder. Rope in bed frames tightens. Fabric feels heavier, less forgiving. Even movement requires more effort. There is a reason winter nights feature so prominently in medieval writing. Letters, sermons, and chronicles mention them often, usually in the context of endurance. Surviving the cold was not dramatic heroism. It was quiet persistence. You remember earlier how fires shaped the evening. In winter, the temptation to keep them burning longer is strong. Yet fear restrains it. A fire left too lively through the night risks disaster. Many choose cold over flame. The decision is made nightly. Some castles used bed warmers. Metal pans filled with hot embers slid briefly beneath bedding before sleep. The warmth they provided was fleeting, but precious. These tools were more common in wealthier households. But even then, they were used carefully. Embers carried danger. You imagine the brief comfort such warmth would bring. Sheets warmed just enough to soften the shock of cold. Bodies relaxing for a moment. Then the heat fades, leaving only memory. You tuck your knees closer to your chest, instinctively conserving heat. Around you, others do the same. The collective posture of the room shifts in winter. Bodies curl tighter. Spaces shrink. Cold also sharpens sound. Wood contracting makes louder cracks. Stone responds with subtle pops. These sounds travel farther in the still winter air. Each noise stands out briefly, then fades. You listen, alert but calm. Winter nights teach patience. Sudden movements waste heat. Stillness preserves it. The smell of the castle changes too. Smoke lingers longer in winter, trapped by closed shutters and heavy air. Wool smells stronger when damp with condensation from breath. The scent of people grows heavier. Fresh air is rare. Some open shutters briefly during the day to refresh rooms. But at night, cold discourages it. People accept stale air in exchange for warmth. Health advice of the time reflects this compromise. Better to be warm than fresh, especially for the elderly and children. You notice how children are placed even more carefully in winter. Between adults, away from walls, wrapped in extra layers. Their small bodies lose heat quickly. Caregivers remain vigilant. Illness feels closer in winter. Coughs linger longer. Breathing sounds heavier. Cold aggravates everything. Nighttime care becomes more frequent. Someone sits up to check a child's breathing. Another offers water. These actions repeat quietly. There is uncertainty among historians about how many winter deaths occurred directly from cold inside castles. Some argue the structures offered adequate protection. Others point to evidence of frostbite, respiratory illness, and exhaustion. What is certain is that winter demanded constant attention. You feel that attention now, even as you rest. A part of your mind monitors warmth. Are your feet covered? Is your neck exposed? Has the blanket shifted? You adjust fabric again, slow and careful. Each movement risks letting cold in. You move only when necessary. The cold also changes how time feels. Minutes stretch. Hours feel longer, without daylight to break the darkness. Night becomes an extended test of patience. Bells marking the hours feel more significant. Each one means progress toward dawn. You hear a distant bell now, muted by stone and distance. The sound carries reassurance. Time is moving. You are not trapped in an endless night. In winter, guards work harder. Cold stiffens muscles. Wind cuts through clothing. Yet patrols continue. Their presence feels even more important now. Fire is more dangerous. Theft is more tempting. Hunger presses harder. You imagine a guard stamping feet quietly to keep blood moving, wrapping a cloak tighter, pausing briefly near a sheltered spot before continuing. Vigilance costs more in winter. Inside, people sleep lighter. Dreams fragment. Waking moments come more often. Cold pulls you toward consciousness repeatedly. You respond by pulling fabric closer, tucking deeper, then drifting again. There is a moment in the deepest part of the night when cold feels most intense. Fires are long dead. Body heat has stabilized. The castle feels its coldest. This is when endurance matters most. You breathe slowly, minimizing heat loss. Breathing through the nose warms air slightly before it reaches the lungs. People knew this intuitively. Some press hands between thighs or beneath armpits, protecting vital warmth. These gestures are small, almost unconscious. You sense others doing the same. The room shifts with tiny movements, then stills again. Despite the cold, sleep comes in waves, not deep, but real. Fatigue outweighs discomfort eventually. The body adapts, finding a balance between shivering and stillness. There is a strange clarity that arrives in winter nights. Thoughts simplify. Desires narrow. Warmth. Rest. Morning. Everything else fades. You think briefly about how modern heating has changed expectations. Here, warmth is earned nightly. Appreciated when found. Never assumed. This makes small comforts meaningful. A thicker blanket. A closer body. A draft blocked successfully. Each feels like a victory. As the night wears on, the cold stops intensifying. It settles. This plateau allows deeper rest to return. Muscles loosen slightly. Breathing steadies. You drift again, aware that dawn will bring its own challenges. Cold does not vanish with light in winter, but survival is measured one night at a time. Wrapped in layers, surrounded by quiet endurance. You rest as best you can. Winter night holds you firmly, but not cruelly. It tests, but it also teaches, and as sleep deepens once more, you accept the cold as part of the experience, not an enemy to defeat, but a condition to live within. Stone walls, thick blankets, shared warmth, vigilance, all working together to carry you through the longest, coldest hours, until the first hint of morning begins to loosen winter's grip on the castle. The weight of winter eventually gives way to a different challenge, one that arrives quietly and settles in without mercy. Summer nights in a medieval castle bring warmth, but not comfort. As your body adjusts to the memory of cold, you begin to feel heat that refuses to release its grip once the sun has gone down. Stone absorbs warmth during the day and holds it long into the night. Walls that chilled you in winter now radiate stored heat inward. The air feels thicker, slower to move. Even as darkness deepens, the castle does not cool quickly. It exhales warmth back into every room, corridor, and sleeping space. You notice it first in your skin. Fabric clings rather than insulates. Wool that protected you in winter now feels heavy and stifling. Linen breathes better, but it is still layered beneath other garments. Removing clothing is not a simple solution. Modesty matters. Protection from insects matters more. You shift restlessly, searching for a position that allows air to move across your skin. Even small drafts feel precious now. Windows that were sealed tightly in winter are opened carefully. Shutters angled to invite breeze without sacrificing security. Still, airflow remains limited. Thick walls and narrow openings restrict movement. The smell of the castle changes again, without cold to suppress it. Scents intensify. Sweat dries slowly. Smoke lingers longer in stagnant air. Food smells from earlier meals hang stubbornly in rooms. The air feels used, heavy with presence. Heat affects sleep immediately. Muscles refuse to relax fully. Breathing becomes shallow. Rest comes slowly and breaks easily. People turn often, trying to find cooler surfaces. Stone floors become tempting, their chill offering brief relief. You understand why many choose to sleep lower in summer, closer to the ground where air settles cooler. Upper chambers trap heat more effectively. Attics become unbearable. Even noble rooms lose some of their appeal. As warmth settles in, another presence emerges with determination. Insects. Mosquitoes whine near ears. Flies buzz softly. Fleas become more active. Summer is their season, and the castle provides ideal conditions. You hear the faint, high pitch of a mosquito searching for exposed skin. The sound is unmistakable, annoying, persistent. You slap instinctively, then freeze, aware of the noise. Others do the same. Quick movements followed by stillness. People develop habits to cope. Sleeves pulled tight, fabric tucked around ankles, heads covered lightly despite heat. Smoke from herbs burned earlier in the evening lingers as a deterrent. Lavender, wormwood, mint. Their effectiveness varies, but any help is welcomed. Some hang netting over beds, especially in wealthier households. Fine woven barriers create a shield against biting insects. These nets are prized in summer, treated with care and stored carefully when not in use. They offer relief, but not perfection. You feel a bite on your forearm. Sharp. Immediate. You scratch. Then stop. Knowing scratching invites more irritation. This cycle repeats throughout the night. Insects do not rest when you do. There are accounts that describe summer nights as more exhausting than winter ones. Cold can be managed through layers and stillness. Heat demands constant adjustment. Sleep becomes shallow, fragmented by discomfort. You listen as others around you shift more frequently than in colder months. Bodies move. Fabric rustles. Someone sighs in frustration. The room never fully settles. Heat also amplifies sound, without the dampening effect of cold. Small noises carry farther. A cough feels louder. A whispered word travels more easily. The castle seems awake even when it rests. You notice how fire behaves differently now. Hearths are used minimally. Cooking is done earlier. Flames are smaller. Light comes from candles and lamps rather than open fires. The air cannot handle more heat. This changes the rhythm of evening. Activity winds down earlier. People seek cooler spaces as soon as daylight fades. Night becomes a time for endurance again, but of a different kind. You find yourself longing for movement, but movement brings sweat. Sweat brings discomfort. Stillness becomes both relief and burden. Animals shift differently in summer too. Dogs pant softly. Cats stretch out, seeking cool stone. Livestock brought indoors in winter now remain outside when possible. Their absence reduces heat and smell slightly. Water becomes more important. Cups are kept close. A sip offers brief relief. Cooling mouth and throat. Supplies are limited, but care is taken to keep water available overnight, especially for children and the sick. Children struggle more with summer nights. Heat irritates. Insects bother sensitive skin. Sleep becomes restless. Caregivers respond with quiet patience. Fanning lightly. Adjusting covers. Whispering comfort. You feel the air move briefly as someone nearby waves a piece of cloth, creating a small breeze. The relief is immediate, though short-lived. Air settles again. There is disagreement among historians about how effective medieval cooling strategies truly were. Some argue that architectural features like thick walls and small windows moderated heat better than we assume. Others point to descriptions of sleepless nights and exhaustion. Both likely hold truth depending on location and weather. You press your palm against the stone beside you. It is cooler than fabric, but not cold. The sensation grounds you. Stone remains reliable even when air does not. You adjust your position to place more skin against this surface. Many people do the same, seeking contact with cooler materials. Wood and stone offer brief comfort. As the night stretches on, the heat does not disappear, but it becomes familiar. The body adapts again. Sweat cools skin. Breathing slows. Fatigue asserts itself. Insects continue their work. You feel another bite. Then another. Annoyance flares. Then fades. There is nothing to be done now. You begin to understand that summer nights test patience more than strength. Cold demands endurance. Heat demands tolerance. Sleep arrives in shorter bursts. Drift. Wake. Drift again. Dreams are vivid. Fragmented. Shaped by discomfort. You wake unsure how long you have rested. Some people rise during the night to walk briefly, seeking cooler air near open windows or courtyards. Movement offers relief, but risks fatigue. Choices are weighed carefully. You remain where you are, conserving energy. The stone holds steady beneath you. The room breathes slowly. Eventually, the deepest part of night arrives. The air cools slightly, just enough to be noticeable. This small change feels like a gift. Muscles relax a fraction. Breathing deepens. You take advantage of this moment, settling into stillness. The insects quiet a little. The air shifts. Summer night never becomes truly cool, but it becomes tolerable, enough to allow rest. You drift again, knowing that dawn will bring heat back quickly. Morning sun will warm stone once more. Another cycle will begin. For now, you rest in the imperfect balance of summer night. Warmth pressing in, insects buzzing, stone offering brief relief. Sleeping in a medieval castle teaches you that comfort is always conditional. It shifts with season, weather, and circumstance. There is no perfect night, only adaptation. And as you sink into another shallow stretch of sleep, you accept summer for what it is. Not an enemy, not a gift, but a challenge to be met quietly, patiently, until light returns and the castle wakes again. As the warmth of summer settles into memory, your thoughts drift toward the quiet routines that prepare people here for sleep, regardless of season. Night does not arrive unannounced in a medieval castle. It is invited, carefully, through habit and repetition. Long before anyone lies down, the mind is guided toward rest by familiar actions performed in the same order night after night. You feel this rhythm now, even as you lie still. Earlier in the evening, before darkness fully claimed the stone, people moved with purpose. Tools were set aside. Fires were banked. Animals were fed one last time. These acts signaled the body that the active part of the day was ending. Prayer plays a central role for many, whether whispered alone or spoken softly in small groups. These moments help mark the transition from doing to resting. Words repeated nightly carry comfort through familiarity. Even those less devoted still pause during these moments, recognizing their place in the shared routine. You remember hearing voices earlier, low and steady, echoing gently through corridors. The cadence was calm, unhurried. These sounds linger in memory now, smoothing the edge between wakefulness and sleep. Hands were washed before night when water allowed, not only for cleanliness, but as a signal. The feel of cool water on skin marked the end of labor. In winter, this step was shortened or skipped, but even a quick rinse served as ritual. Clothing was adjusted thoughtfully, boots removed, outer layers folded and placed within reach. Everything needed for morning was prepared before sleep. This preparation reduced anxiety. Knowing where things were allowed the mind to release its grip. You sense how these routines echo through the castle even now. People lie with garments arranged carefully nearby. Nothing is left to chance. Morning will come early. Readiness matters. Food routines also shape rest. Heavy meals are avoided late at night when possible. Digestion interferes with sleep. Warm drinks are favored instead. Broths or watered wine, taken slowly. These calm the body and warm it gently without burden. There is a shared understanding that night is not the time for excess. Loud laughter fades. Arguments are postponed. Energy is conserved. This restraint is learned, not enforced. The night demands it. You think about how these habits affect the body over time. Repetition trains the nervous system. The same actions, performed nightly, guide the body toward rest even when conditions are imperfect. Cold, heat, noise, discomfort. Routine smooths their impact. Even children follow these patterns. Stories are told in the same order. Prayers repeated. Blankets tucked with familiar gestures. These signals tell young minds that it is safe to let go. You recall earlier how caregivers moved quietly, preparing bedding and checking on children. These acts are part of the same routine. Care continues until sleep fully settles. There is evidence in household accounts that routines were considered essential to good order. Disruption invited chaos. A household that slept poorly struggled to function the next day. Leaders understood this, encouraging predictable evenings whenever possible. You feel the effect of that predictability now. Despite discomforts, your body knows what comes next. Breathing slows. Muscles loosen. Thoughts soften. Night routines also include reflection. Some people spend a few moments reviewing the day, quietly acknowledging mistakes or successes. This reflection is brief, not ruminative. The goal is closure, not analysis. You sense this mental settling within yourself. The day fades. Concerns lose sharpness. What remains feels manageable. The castle itself participates in these rituals. Doors close at set times. Bells mark transitions. Guards change shifts according to schedule. These signals reinforce order. You remember the sound of a bell earlier, marking the final hour before full night. Its tone lingered, clear and calm. That sound told everyone the same thing. It is time. Even those who resist sleep feel the pull of this collective rhythm. When everyone around you slows, stillness becomes easier. There is some debate among historians about how consciously people experienced these routines. Some argue they were deeply aware of them. Others suggest they operated mostly on instinct. Likely both are true. Habit becomes instinct over time. You feel that instinct now. Your body recognizes the shape of the night. It knows what is expected. Resistance fades. Night routines also serve a social function. They remind everyone that rest is shared, that no one is meant to push endlessly, that the castle itself requires periods of quiet to function. You think briefly about how modern life often ignores this. Lights stay on. Work stretches late. Signals blur. Here, boundaries are clearer. Darkness demands respect. As the hours pass, these routines continue to work quietly beneath awareness. Even when sleep breaks, returning to rest feels easier because the structure remains. You adjust your position slightly, the movement smooth and familiar. This too has become part of your routine now. Find warmth. Find stillness. Let go. The presence of others reinforces this pattern. Their breathing steadies. Their movements slow. Collective calm spreads. You notice how your thoughts drift more gently now. They do not race. They float, untethered from urgency. Routine has done its work. There is comfort in knowing that tomorrow will follow a similar pattern. Morning tasks, day labor, evening winding down, night rest. Predictability brings peace. Even in uncertain times, these small certainties anchor people. You feel anchored now, held not by comfort, but by familiarity. The castle settles deeper into night. No new sounds arise. No new movements disturb the pattern. The rhythm holds. You allow yourself to sink further into it, trusting the habits that have guided countless nights before this one. Sleeping in a medieval castle is never effortless, but it is supported by these quiet rituals. They soften edges. They prepare the mind. As you drift again towards sleep, you carry with you the sense that rest here is not accidental. It is cultivated carefully, night after night, through repetition and care. wrapped in this rhythm. You rest more fully now. The day has been released. The night is underway. And within the steady pulse of routine, sleep comes as gently as it can, guiding you onward toward the deeper hours before dawn. You wake without alarm, without urgency, simply because your body decides it is time. This moment feels familiar, almost expected. Sleep here does not follow a single long arc. It arrives in pieces, drifting in and out like tide against stone. You are now in the middle of the night, awake but not fully alert, suspended between rest and readiness. This pattern is common, though rarely named aloud. People do not find it strange. They expect it. Waking in the night feels natural, not disruptive. The darkness has depth, and this is one of its quieter layers. You lie still at first, listening. The castle sounds the same as before, but softer, fewer movements, longer pauses between footsteps. Breathing around you has slowed, deepened. The world feels held in a gentle pause. Many medieval people experience sleep in two main segments rather than one continuous stretch. The first came soon after nightfall. The second arrived closer to dawn. Between them lay this waking interval, calm and unhurried. People called it many things, or nothing at all. It was simply part of the night. You feel no pressure to force sleep back immediately. There is time. No glowing clock reminds you of obligations. The bell that marks the hours will sound when it does. Until then, this moment belongs to you. You shift slightly, careful not to disturb others. The straw rustles softly. No one reacts. This waking interval is shared. Even if unspoken, others nearby are likely awake too, eyes open in the dark, thoughts drifting. Some use this time for quiet reflection. Thoughts wander without urgency. The mind feels open, less burdened. Problems seem distant. Ideas feel softer. You think about the day that passed, the rhythm of work, the small interactions. Nothing presses for resolution. The night does not demand answers. It offers space. Others whisper prayers during this time, not out of obligation, but habit. Words spoken softly feel different in the dark. They carry weight without urgency. Even those who are not deeply religious may repeat familiar phrases. Comfort lies in repetition. You hear a faint murmur nearby, someone speaking quietly to themselves. The sound fades quickly. No one responds. Privacy is respected in these moments. Some people rise during this interval. They stretch gently, walk a few steps, check on animals or children. These movements are slow and purposeful, never rushed. The castle accommodates this wakefulness without complaint. You consider rising too, but choose not to. Stillness feels better. Your body remains warm. The cold beyond the blanket reminds you what waits outside. This waking period allows the body to adjust. Muscles relax further. Breathing steadies. The mind clears residue left by dreams. Dreams feel closer now, easier to recall. Fragments linger. Image blur. You let them pass without holding on. There is discussion among historians about whether this segmented sleep was universal or simply common. Evidence appears in diaries, medical writings, and literature. The pattern seems widespread, shaped by darkness and routine rather than biology alone. Here, in the castle, the pattern makes sense. Night is long, darkness deep. Sleep adapts accordingly. You feel no frustration about being awake. There is no sense of failure. This is not insomnia. It is rest unfolding in its own way. The castle itself seems to recognize this interval. Guards move quietly. Fires are checked. Small tasks are done without fanfare. Night is not a void. It is active in its own restrained way. You notice how calm this wakefulness feels compared to daytime alertness. There is no rush of thought. No need to plan. Awareness exists without tension. You shift your hands beneath the blanket. feeling warmth settle again. Your body remains at ease. Some people use this time for intimacy, for quiet conversation, for moments that require darkness and privacy. Others simply lie and listen. There is no single rule. You hear a soft footstep in the distance. Then another. A guard passes, marking time without words. The sound reassures you. The night continues to be held. You close your eyes again, not because sleep is forced, but because it feels natural. The waking interval has done its work. The mind has cleared. The body is ready to drift again. Sleep returns differently this time. It feels deeper, heavier. The earlier rest prepared the ground. Now the body can settle more fully. You sink back into the bedding, aware that this second stretch of sleep often carries people closer to morning. It is steadier, less interrupted. Breathing slows further. Thoughts soften into indistinct shapes. Awareness fades gently. The castle remains quiet. No new sounds arise. The night holds steady. This pattern repeats across countless nights. Wake. Rest. Wake again. It is not spoken of as a strategy. It is simply how life fits into darkness. You realize that modern expectations of uninterrupted sleep are shaped by artificial light and fixed schedules. Here, without those pressures, rest follows a more flexible path. There is comfort in this. No struggle. No judgment. Wakefulness is allowed its place. You drift deeper now, carried by familiarity. The body knows this rhythm. It has followed it before. Dreams return, softer and longer. Images flow without sharp edges. The waking world recedes. As sleep deepens, you feel prepared for whatever comes next. Another waking, another sound, another hour passing. Nothing feels threatening. The night is no longer something to endure. It is something to move through gently, in stages. And as you sink into this second rest, you do so with trust. Trust in the routine. Trust in the castle. Trust in the knowledge that waking and sleeping are both parts of the same quiet cycle, guiding you steadily toward dawn. When sleep loosens again, it does so differently this time. Your body remains heavy and still, but your mind drifts into places shaped by belief rather than sensation. Dreams come more vividly now, colored by the darkness and the quiet hours that surround them. In a medieval castle, dreams are not dismissed as meaningless. They are watched, remembered, sometimes feared. You sense the shift before any image appears. A feeling of depth, a quiet pull inward. The castle around you fades, replaced by scenes that feel symbolic rather than literal. A corridor that stretches too long, a door that refuses to open, a fire that glows without heat. These images do not frighten you outright, but they linger with intention. People here do not speak of dreams lightly. Morning conversations sometimes include them, shared cautiously, especially if the dream felt unusual. A dream might be seen as a message, a warning, or a reflection of inner imbalance. The boundary between waking and dreaming feels thinner in this place, especially at night. You recall how sermons and stories often framed dreams as meaningful. Some were believed to come from divine sources, others from bodily causes. A heavy meal, an illness, a restless mind. Not every dream mattered, but none were entirely ignored. As your dream unfolds, you feel yourself walking through a familiar part of the castle, though details blur and shift. The walls seem taller, the light dimmer. You recognize the place without knowing why. This recognition carries weight. Many medieval thinkers believed dreams reflected the state of the soul. Others argued they revealed physical imbalance, cold, heat, hunger, fear. All could shape what the mind produced at rest. These explanations coexisted without conflict. You feel a flicker of unease as the dream changes. A shadow moves where it should not. A sound echoes without source. Fear does not surge, but it settles quietly, like mist, This is how many night fears arrived, not as panic, but as suggestion. You sense that if you woke fully now, the dream would linger. Its meaning would be discussed, weighed, perhaps dismissed, perhaps remembered. Interpretation depended on context, on who you were, on what the dream showed. Some dreams were thought to predict illness, others conflict, others fortune. There was no single system. Belief varied by region, education, and temperament. What mattered was attention. You drift deeper, the dream unfolding without resistance. You are no longer fully aware of the body beneath blankets. Sensation narrows. Images take precedence. At some point, the dream dissolves into something softer, a feeling rather than a scene. Calm replaces tension. This transition feels deliberate, as if the mind has completed its work. You wake lightly, breath steady, heart calm. The darkness of the room returns, familiar and grounding. The dream fades quickly, leaving only a trace. You do not chase it. You know from habit that holding on to dreams can disturb rest. Still, a part of you registers what just passed. You lie still, allowing the feeling to settle without analysis. This too is learned behavior. Dreams are acknowledged, then released. Night fears sometimes accompany these moments. Shapes in shadow seem purposeful. Sounds take on meaning. A flicker of unease passes through you, but it does not take hold. People here expect this. Night invites imagination, without light to define edges. The mind fills gaps. Stories told during the day return in altered form. Legends, warnings, beliefs, all surface more easily after dark. You remember how earlier you saw shadows move along the walls. Firelight played tricks. Now, even without flame, darkness continues its work. But familiarity tempers fear. You hear a soft sound nearby. Someone stirs, perhaps waking from their own dream. A sigh follows. Then stillness returns. These shared moments of half-waking create quiet reassurance. You are not alone in this experience. Some people kept charms nearby at night. Small objects believed to ward off bad dreams or spirits. A carved token, a sprig of herb, a piece of cloth blessed earlier. Whether these truly worked mattered less than the comfort they provided. You reach instinctively toward a familiar object near you. Perhaps a folded garment, perhaps a small personal item. The touch grounds you. The room feels solid again. There remains debate among scholars about how deeply belief shaped nighttime experience. Some argue fear of the supernatural was constant. Others suggest practical concerns outweighed superstition. The truth likely lies between. Belief influenced interpretation, not necessarily emotion. You notice that fear does not escalate. It passes like a wave, replaced by calm. This resilience is learned. Night after night, people face the same darkness and emerge intact. The castle itself feels less threatening now. Sounds have returned to normal patterns. No unfamiliar movement. No sharp noise. Just breathing. Stone settling. Time passing. You close your eyes again, allowing sleep to return. The dream world feels quieter now. Less insistent. The mind has processed what it needed to. In this second half of the night, dreams tend to soften. They stretch longer, blur more easily. Sleep deepens without as many interruptions. You sense dawn approaching in an abstract way, not through light, but through a subtle shift in air and sound. The deepest part of night has passed. The mind relaxes further. Dreams continue, but they feel less charged. Images drift without urgency. You move through them without resistance. This cycle of dreaming and waking has repeated countless times within these walls. People learn to trust it. Night fears lose their power through repetition. You feel that trust now. The darkness no longer feels heavy. It feels familiar. As sleep settles again, You carry with you the understanding that dreams here are part of life, not disturbances. They are shaped by belief, by body, by environment. They come and go without demanding resolution, wrapped in darkness, held by stone and habit. You rest more deeply now. Fear fades. Dreams soften. The night continues its slow, steady movement toward morning, carrying you with it, calm and untroubled. Through the last quiet hours before light returns, your sleep lightens once more, not from discomfort, but from a subtle change in the air around you. Something has shifted. It is not light yet, but the quality of the darkness feels different. The deepest part of night has passed, and with it comes a fragile stillness that feels almost ceremonial. Illness lives close to sleep in a medieval castle, and in these quiet hours before dawn, its presence becomes more noticeable. You hear it in breathing that sounds heavier than before, a cough that repeats too often, a restless movement that does not settle easily. Night makes these signs harder to ignore. Castles gather people tightly, and where people gather, sickness travels easily. Shared air, shared bedding, shared spaces. Even in households with careful routines, illness slips through. Cold nights aggravate lungs. Damp stone aches in joints. Fatigue weakens resistance. You sense someone nearby shifting again and again, unable to find comfort. Their breathing comes in uneven waves. This is familiar. Night often makes illness feel worse. Pain sharpens. Worry grows louder in the dark. Caregivers respond quietly. A woman rises, her movement careful and practiced. She brings water, lifting a cup slowly, helping someone drink without spilling. The sound of swallowing is faint but reassuring. No words are spoken. They are not needed. People understood that night demanded gentler responses. Panic wastes energy. Calm preserves it. Illness is met with patience rather than urgency unless danger becomes clear. There are records that describe how sickness was managed overnight. Fires kept low but steady. Extra blankets offered. Windows adjusted slightly to balance air and warmth. These small acts mattered. You feel how illness changes the rhythm of sleep around you. Others rest more lightly. Listening. Someone coughs, and several people stir briefly, then settle again. Shared awareness does not fade completely. You notice how the smell of the room shifts subtly. Breath carries a heavier scent. Herbs placed earlier to freshen air now serve another purpose. Some believe they protect against sickness. Others simply appreciate the comfort. There is uncertainty even now about how effective these measures truly were. Medical understanding varied widely. Some treatments helped. Others did little. What mattered most was care. Attention. Presence. You hear a whispered prayer nearby. Not formal. Not loud. A few words spoken softly into the dark. These prayers are not dramatic appeals. They are familiar phrases, spoken many times before. Their repetition calms both speaker and listener. Children sleep lighter near illness. They stir easily. Sensing change, caregivers respond quickly. Soothing without explanation. Fear is not useful here. You think about how different this is from modern separation of the sick. Here, illness remains within the community. Isolation is rare. Support is immediate. This closeness carries risk, but it also brings comfort. No one is left alone in the night unless absolutely necessary. Even those dying are rarely isolated. Presence matters more than prevention. You lie still, listening, aware of the fragility of bodies around you. Sleep does not erase vulnerability. It highlights it. At some point, the coughing eases, breathing steadies. The caregiver returns to their place, resting lightly. The crisis passes. For now, the castle settles again, but not into full rest. A watchfulness remains. Illness reminds everyone that the night is not only about sleep, but survival. You feel your own body, checking quietly, warm enough, breathing easy, no pain. Gratitude passes through you without words. Illness shapes how people think about rest. Sleep is not just recovery from labor, it is preparation for endurance. A sick body needs different care, more warmth, more attention, less movement. People adjust instinctively. They shift sleeping arrangements. They give up warmer spots. They accept discomfort so others may rest better. These sacrifices happen quietly, without discussion. You sense one such shift nearby. Someone moves away from the hearth, making room for the ill. The cold touches them immediately, but they accept it. This gesture goes unnoticed, but it matters. There are moments when illness worsens suddenly. Tonight, it does not, but the possibility lingers, shaping the quiet. You realize how much trust is placed in caregivers. Their judgment determines whether someone rests or wakes, whether help is sought or patience is maintained. This trust is earned through experience. As the night deepens toward morning, illness often feels heaviest. The body is tired. Defenses are low. Dawn brings relief, not only through light, but through activity. People know this. They hold on until then. You hear a faint sound of movement farther away. Perhaps someone preparing for early morning duties. Bakers, guards changing shifts, servants rising before light. These movements signal that the night is loosening its grip. Illness responds to this shift too. Some find strength with the coming day. Others worsen. Night reveals. Day responds. You lie still, letting the quiet hold. The sounds of breathing around you feel steadier now. The tension eases slightly. The castle itself feels different in these hours. Less threatening, less heavy. The night has done its work. What remains is waiting. You allow yourself to drift again, knowing that true morning sleep will be brief. The body prepares to rise soon. Illness remains a presence, but not a dominant one. It is part of life here, managed rather than feared. As your eyes close once more, you understand that sleeping in a medieval castle meant sharing not only warmth and space, but vulnerability. Illness did not pause for darkness. Care did not pause either. Wrapped in this awareness, you rest lightly, listening to the quiet resilience around you. Breath by breath, moment by moment, the night moves on, carrying sickness, care, and sleep together toward the pale edge of dawn. You do not wake because of noise or discomfort this time. You wake because someone nearby never truly slept. Their presence moves differently through the night, careful and alert, shaped by duty rather than rest. Servants in a medieval castle exist in a state between sleeping and waking, and as awareness returns, you begin to feel how their vigilance threads through the darkness. These are the people who listen even while lying still, who rise at the smallest cue, who know the castle not as a shelter, but as a system that must be kept running through the night. Their rest is light by design. You hear one of them move now. Soft steps, bare feet or thin shoes against stone. The sound is controlled, deliberate. They know exactly where each board creaks and where it does not. This knowledge comes from repetition, from walking these paths hundreds of times in darkness. Servants sleep close to where they are needed, near kitchens, near doors, near children or nobles who may call out. Their sleeping places are chosen for access rather than comfort. Even when they lie down, their bodies remain oriented toward responsibility. You sense how different their posture is. They do not curl inward fully. They remain ready to rise, limbs positioned for movement, breathing shallow enough to wake quickly. This is not anxiety. It is training. Household rules often specify that certain servants must remain available at night. A fire watcher, a doorkeeper, a nurse, a groom responsible for animals. These roles rotate in some households, but in others, they fall to the same individuals night after night. You notice how these servants measure the night, not by sleep cycles, but by tasks, checking embers, listening for bells, responding to calls. The night is divided into responsibilities rather than hours. One servant pauses nearby, listening. Their stillness is active, not relaxed. They are checking the air, the sounds, the mood of the space. Satisfied, they move on without a word. There is a belief reflected in many household accounts that good service requires anticipation. The best servants act before being asked. At night, this means waking before a call is made, adjusting a blanket before a noble stirs, bringing water before thirst becomes discomfort. You feel how this anticipation shapes rest. Servants sleep in fragments, catching moments of rest between duties. They learn to recover quickly, to settle again after rising. Their bodies adapt to short stretches of sleep rather than long ones. There is debate among historians about how exhausting this must have been. Some argue that constant service shortened lives. Others suggest that servants adapted physiologically to lighter sleep. The truth likely lies in between, varying by individual and circumstance. You hear a quiet interaction nearby. A servant responds to a soft call, bringing something needed. The exchange is brief, efficient. No thanks are spoken. Gratitude is implied, not verbalized. Servants learn to move through sleeping spaces without disturbing others. They step carefully between bodies. They know where children sleep, where animals lie, where nobles expect silence. You realize how much trust is placed in them. They carry keys. They manage fire. They guard access. Their presence makes deeper sleep possible for others. Yet their own rest remains secondary. Even when nothing happens, they remain ready. This readiness becomes part of identity. You think about how this constant alertness might feel. The tension of listening, the inability to surrender fully. Over time, this likely becomes normal. The body adjusts its expectations. Some servants nap during the day when possible. Others rest in shifts. In busy households, rest is scarce, yet service continues. You notice that servants often sleep in clothes, boots nearby, tools within reach. There is no ritual of undressing fully. The night might demand action at any moment. You hear another servant adjust a shutter quietly, responding to a draft. This small act improves comfort for many, yet draws no attention. Such contributions are invisible but essential. The castle relies on these quiet figures. Without them, fire would burn unchecked. Doors would remain unsecured. Illness would go unattended. Sleep would be fragile. You sense their movement receding now, the night settling again, yet you know they have not disappeared. They remain nearby. Listening. This awareness changes how you experience rest. Knowing someone is watching allows you to let go a little more. You feel the tension ease. Servants also respond to early signs of morning. They rise before dawn to prepare fires, food, and spaces for waking life. Their night blends seamlessly into day. You hear faint movement farther away. Perhaps bread being prepared, a fire coaxed back to life. These sounds mark the slow return of activity. For servants, there is no clear boundary between night and morning. Duties overlap. Rest is fitted around work rather than the other way around. You feel a quiet respect emerge. These unseen efforts hold the castle together. Stone walls protect, but people maintain. There are moments when servants steal deeper rest. A brief sleep near a warm hearth. A quiet corner unused for a few hours. These moments are precious. Guarded. You imagine how exhaustion accumulates over years. Yet service continues. People endure. The castle does not acknowledge this endurance openly. It is assumed, expected, yet it shapes every night within these walls. You drift again, aware that your rest depends on their vigilance. This dependency feels humbling. As your breathing slows, you notice that servant movements become less frequent. The night has passed its most demanding hours. Dawn approaches. Soon, servants will rise fully. Their rest, such as it is, will end. The castle will wake. You allow yourself to sink back into sleep, knowing that while you rest, someone nearby remains alert. This balance allows the night to function. Sleeping in a medieval castle means accepting that not everyone sleeps equally. Some rest deeply, others barely at all. Each role supports the whole. Wrapped in this understanding, you drift again toward rest, carried not only by stone and routine, but by the quiet vigilance of those who never fully sleep, guiding the night steadily toward morning. You wake before the sun, not because light has reached you, but because the castle itself begins to stir. The change is subtle at first, almost imagined, a faint shift in sound, a different quality to the air. Night has not ended yet, but it is loosening its hold. This hour belongs to those who rise early. Servants are already moving with more purpose. Their steps are still quiet, but no longer tentative. Fires are coaxed back to life. Wood is added carefully, producing the first low crackle of morning warmth. The smell of smoke grows slightly sharper, cutting through the heavier night air. You hear the soft thud of a door closing somewhere, followed by the scrape of a wooden bar being lifted. Locks that sealed the castle overnight begin to loosen. The outside world is still dark, but the boundary between inside and outside prepares to open again. Breathing around you changes. People shift more often. Sleep grows lighter. Even those who remain still are closer to waking now. The body senses approaching activity long before the eyes confirm it. You feel a faint chill as fires have not yet fully warmed the stone. Night cold lingers stubbornly in walls and floors. Morning warmth will take time to spread. People know this and move with care. Someone nearby sits up quietly, stretching slowly to avoid stiffness. Joints ache after hours of stillness on cold surfaces. Limbs feel heavy. Movement returns gradually, not all at once. You sense children stirring first. Their sleep is lighter near morning. They murmur softly, adjusting blankets, seeking warmth and familiarity. Caregivers respond with practiced gestures, smoothing fabric, offering quiet reassurance without fully waking. The castle's sounds begin to layer. Footsteps overlap. Wood creaks more frequently. A distant voice murmurs instructions. These sounds do not startle. They signal normality. You hear a guard announce the hour, his voice steady but softer than during the night. The words carry less warning now and more acknowledgement. The longest stretch of darkness has passed. The smell of food begins to appear faintly. Bread warming, porridge being prepared. The scent is subtle but unmistakable. It pulls at the body, reminding it of hunger that sleep dulled. You realize how early mornings arrive here. Daylight may still be far off, but work begins regardless. Time is measured by necessity rather than light alone. People prepare themselves quietly. Clothing is adjusted. Boots are pulled on slowly. Belts tightened. The ritual of readiness mirrors the ritual of rest. But in reverse, you feel your own body preparing. Muscles tense slightly, then loosen. Breathing deepens. Awareness sharpens. Sleep fades without resistance. The castle feels larger again as activity returns. Spaces that felt intimate at night expand with movement. Corners fill with purpose. Silence recedes. There is a sense of relief in this transition. Night demands endurance. Morning demands action. Both are familiar. But relief comes with change. You think briefly about how nights and mornings blur together here. There is no sharp division, just gradual shifts. Darkness gives way to activity long before light arrives. Illness, if present, is reassessed now. Caregivers check on those who coughed during the night. Water is offered again. A decision is made about who can rise and who must rest longer. You hear a quiet conversation nearby. Low voices discussing tasks. The tone is practical. Calm. No one rushes yet. There is time, but not much. Animals stir too. Dogs rise and stretch, nails clicking softly on stone. Cats slip away from warm spots, seeking food. Livestock outside make their presence known faintly through walls. The castle breathes more deeply now. Air moves as doors open and close. Drafts return, cooler and fresher. The night's stale air begins to shift. You feel this change immediately. The air feels lighter, even if colder. Breathing becomes easier. The body welcomes it. You sit up slowly, careful not to disturb those still resting. This movement marks your transition from sleeper to participant. The night has released you. As you adjust your clothing, you feel the marks of the night. Stiffness, a dull ache in joints, a lingering chill. These sensations are expected. They will fade with movement. You hear the first sounds from outside. A bird call, faint but clear. It cuts through the stone like a thread of light. Dawn is approaching. That sound carries meaning. It tells everyone the same thing. The world beyond the walls is waking too. The castle responds. More doors open. Voices grow slightly louder. Firelight strengthens. The rhythm of day begins to assert itself. You stand carefully, feet meeting cold stone. The shock is brief. Familiar. You shift weight, waiting for warmth to return. It will take time. You glance toward a narrow window. The sky beyond is still dark, but no longer black. A pale hint of color appears. The promise of light. People move with purpose now. Night habits are replaced by morning ones. Bedding is shaken out. Straw is adjusted. Spaces are cleared. The shared sleeping areas begin to empty. Some return to private chambers to dress fully. Others move directly toward workspaces. The castle rearranges itself. You notice how quickly night disappears once morning routines begin. What felt long and heavy now feels distant. There is no dramatic ending to the night. No announcement. It simply dissolves into action. You take a moment to stretch, feeling the body wake. Muscles respond slowly. Breathing deepens. The chill begins to fade. Around you, people greet each other quietly, not with excitement, but acknowledgement. Everyone has made it through another night. This shared endurance creates a quiet bond. No one celebrates it openly, but it is understood. You think about how different this feels from modern mornings. There is no alarm, no rush of artificial light, just gradual awakening guided by sound, smell, and habit. The castle now belongs to the day again. Night retreats into memory. As you prepare to move on, you carry the weight of the night with you. The cold, the sounds, the shared space, the vigilance. All of it shapes how you step into the day. You realize that sleep here is not an escape from life. It is part of its rhythm, as demanding and as necessary as work. And, as the first true light of dawn begins to slip into the castle, you feel the night release you fully. What remains is movement, purpose, and the steady continuation of life within stone walls. Ready once more for the long hours ahead, you step away from the place where you slept, and it surprises you how quickly the memory of the night begins to loosen. The bedding is still warm in places. Straw holds the shape of your body for a moment longer before springing back. The night feels close, yet already receding, as if it belongs to a different version of you. Morning inside a medieval castle does not erase what came before. It carries the imprint of the night forward. Stiff joints remind you of cold stone. A faint itch lingers on skin. The smell of smoke remains in your clothing. These traces follow you as you move. Proof that rest here is never separate from endurance. You notice how others move away from their sleeping places with similar care. Blankets are folded. Straw is smoothed. Nothing is wasted. Sleeping spaces must return to their daytime roles quickly. The great hall becomes a hall again. Chambers become workspaces. Night dissolves into utility. You feel more awake now, but not refreshed in the way modern sleep promises. Instead, You feel prepared, awake enough, rested enough. That is the measure that matters here. Sleep has done its job if it allows the day to begin. You think back through the hours of darkness, the cold that pressed in, the sounds that never fully stopped, the closeness of other bodies, the quiet vigilance of servants, the slow rhythm of waking and resting. None of it felt indulgent, yet all of it felt necessary. Castles were never designed to cradle sleep. They were built to endure siege, weather, and time. Sleeping inside them meant adapting yourself to stone rather than expecting stone to adapt to you. You understand now why medieval people did not speak of sleep as something soft or luxurious. They spoke of it as something practical, something managed, something fitted into the larger demands of survival. The memory of winter nights lingers longest. Cold pressing inward, breath sharp in the dark. The way bodies clustered for warmth. Summer nights brought their own challenges. Heat trapped in walls. Insects refusing rest. Sleep fragmented by discomfort. Each season reshaped the night. You recall how routines made all the difference. Fires banked carefully. Doors barred. Prayers whispered. Clothing arranged. These actions guided the body toward rest, even when conditions were harsh. Habit became comfort. You think of the people who slept lighter than you. Caregivers listening for children. Servants ready to rise at a call. Guards pacing walls through wind and cold. Your rest depended on their vigilance. This dependency shaped the experience more than any bed or blanket. Even fear played its role. Not loud fear, but quiet awareness. Fire, illness, intrusion. The night demanded readiness. Sleep arrived, not as surrender, but as controlled release. You realized that sleeping in a medieval castle was not about forgetting the world. It was about remaining part of it. Even while resting, ears listened, bodies adapted, minds accepted interruption as normal. As daylight strengthens, these reflections feel almost distant. The castle now hums with activity. Night belongs to memory again, yet its lessons remain. You step fully into the day carrying a new understanding. Medieval sleep was shaped by architecture, community, season, and belief. It was shared, interrupted, practical, and deeply human. And as you move on, the last traces of the night settle quietly behind you, not as something endured, but as something lived. Now, let the images soften. Imagine the stone walls growing quiet again, not because the night has returned, but because memory is settling. The echoes fade. The cold loosens its grip. The restless sounds drift farther away. Picture yourself standing still for a moment, breathing slowly. The castle no longer demanding attention. The weight of stone feels distant now. What remains is calm awareness. The long night you just passed through becomes gentle in retrospect. Not harsh, not heavy, simply real. A rhythm followed by countless lives before you. Each night met with patience and quiet resilience. As you breathe, let the details blur. The straw, the firelight, the footsteps, the murmured voices. They dissolve into a soft background. Like embers cooling after a long burn. Your body relaxes. Muscles loosen. Thoughts slow. There is no need to hold on to the story anymore. You have walked through it. You understand it. Now you can let it drift away. The castle rests. The night rests. And so do you. Stay still for a moment longer. Let the quiet remain. Sweet dreams.